talking to the people down in Houston, we're going to go to wishbone triple option, okay, and change things up a little bit schematically. Yeah, it's been effective. Listen, the system is the system. There'll obviously be tweaks, but we'll address those as they come. I don't want to show the hand too much. At the same time, there's only so much you can do, with a system in place. So we'll have tweaks, and there'll be. This is an unbelievable coaching staff. From every position coach to the defense side of the ball to the support staff, and there will be input from everybody in regards to how we can make this better to get back to what we need to do to win football games.
What is priority number one for you in terms of unlocking the offense, fixing the offense, that sort of thing?
Well, I don't think there's a magic potion that's going to fix things. We had a unit meeting today, and stressed buying in, stressed for those people that golf. If you want to shave strokes off your game, go work on the thing that's easiest, being putting, right? And so for us, we're going to emphasize doing the little things, from our effort to our physicality to trying to change things with our passion and our energy, and we'll address the scheme and all that as we. Hard. He's got a lot of arm. He's got a lot of years now. So we will play to his strengths again. Try not to tip our much about what may change, if anything. But out of all the guys in our meeting room, Isaac has played with passion, he's played with toughness, and we're gonna play to his skill set, his mentality.
And McCall decided to say up forward. How much do you admire the kids like this?
They've been unbelievable since the moment we stepped, since they came out. But my interaction with to react in a positive manner, right? And yeah, what's the saying? Life is 90% or 10% what happens to you, 90% how you react. We have on how we handle this back. And guys know that it's on us, right? It's on every coaches, to the staff, to choice to be positive and to initiate.
Will you be up in the booth by chance?
To be honest, haven't decided. I've traditionally been up in the booth. Last year in our bowl game, I went down from the box to the field. With the implementation of the iPads, that adds a whole nother element. So I'm weighing the cost-benefit analysis of getting the bird's eye view from up top and the interaction directly with the quarterback in the video. So I haven't decided yet. I will here in the next day or two.
Okay, so some decisions to be made for Mike Bajakian on even where he's going to be sitting during the games. And look, those were the right options. I loved his job on that stuff. But such is life. That's the on that stuff. But such is life. That's the optimism that you have with a well-established program that you think is going to have one of the best quarterbacks in the country coming back. As it stands, you have a freshman quarterback who's got, I think, pretty unlimited upside, but certain limitations right now. And now you've seen the resignation of the best offensive coordinator in the Kyle Whittingham era. 2 different stints, and Andy Ludwig production. Andy Ludwig offenses were better than any of the offenses without Andy Ludwig, and that's just factual information at the University of Utah football program. Now, you either die a hero or you live to see yourself become a villain. That's a quote that was given to me from someone inside the Utah program, and it's very appropriate. Cam Rising, that happened to him. Andy Ludwig, that happened to him. It happened in the same season. And that's just very So now that we zero in on Mike Bajakian and what he is capable of, you got to go with what you know and you got to go with what you don't know. All right? Here's what we know about Bajakian. He is an experienced play caller. He's a guy who has had those play calling duties at multiple locations, even at Power 5 schools. And Kyle Whittingham alluded to that when he referenced his resume. I said I was going to avoid this yesterday because I didn't want to just completely start off on a skeptical foot. There's a couple of ways you can view Mike Bajakian's tenure as an offensive play caller at North. Power program. Central Michigan, not a power program. Similar to what we saw from Andy Ludwig the first time he was at Utah. Win two conference championship games, get to 4 conference championship games, and a couple of Rose Bowls. And look at the numbers. You look at what these produced. And this is where I want to be extra careful about how I phrase this, because you're dealing with an apples and oranges comparison when you say, well, all right, what are Mike Bajakian offenses in the past? What have they looked like in the past? Well, at Northwestern, he was often dealing with the worst or second worst roster in his conference. That's not what Utah's got this year. It might not be the clear number 1 roster in the conference like we hoped it would be, but it's definitely not a bottom-dwelling offense talent-wise. When he was coordinating at Tennessee in 2013 and 2014, this is pre-resurgence of Tennessee football, okay? So and he's dealing with a roster that certainly had a lot of talent on it, but relative to the competition, when he's going up against the dynastic Alabama squads especially, some really good Florida teams in those days. Mississippi State had its moment in the early 2010s, right? That's what he was up against. So there's a bit of an apples and oranges when I compare, because I'm going to compare the numbers of Andy Ludwig offense and Mike Bajakian offenses, all right? At Tennessee, he had 24 points a game his first year. He had 29 points, a touchdown, actually more than a touchdown, from year 2 to year 3, a touchdown, actually more than a touchdown, from year 2 to year 3 at Northwestern. And the way I phrased the Twitter poll today was, do you think that he can improve this Utah offense a touchdown a game? Based on the schedule you have, based on the defensive output that you've been able to see from Utah football this year, I think a touchdown a game improvement from this offense gives you a lot of hope. I think anything bigger than that, you're getting unrealistic with your expectations. We're talking about the average over the next 5 games. Do you think that Utah scores 7 points a game more than they have been on average this season? And let's remember, the competition that you're going to face is very tough moving forward. The average right now for Utah football incorporates a Southern Utah matchup, a Baylor matchup, an Oklahoma State matchup, and we know that all those teams have turned out to not be great. Utah State as well. So, I mean, a 7-point per game improvement from the Utah offense against the remainder of the schedule is as good as like a 14-point per game if it was kind of even across the board. So do you think Mike Bajakian can coordinate this offense to a 7-point improvement per game on average? Alonzo Sariñana he's producing today. Am I being unrealistic by setting even that 7-point threshold?
No, I mean, to piggyback on what we talked about yesterday, you alluded to that. They need to be a touchdown better, right? That you alluded to. I mean, Kyle's sweet spot is that 30-point range, if I'm not mistaken. So I think a touchdown more is realistic. I mean, frankly, if you move on your previous OC, you're moving on because the offensive output wasn't there. And so that should be at least the
but your defense is better than offense.
Yes.
Your offense is worse than an average offense. Now, if you can get your offense to just be average, I feel like I'm talking about 2015 Utah football. If you can get your offense to just be average and you have an above average or even exceptional defense with Correne Reed being healthy, with hopefully guys, back off of prolonged absences based on injury, now we're talking about an opportunity to have some better results here. But you need it, and you kind of need it desperately. And, of course, for Utah, I should have gone and run the specifics on red zone offense for both Andy Ludwig and Bajakian, because that's really the issue.
Yeah.
This Utah team has been able to build drives. It's the most maddening thing in the world, and it's why fans are walking out of games, one-score games with, 4 minutes left, because you don't trust that even if the drive is built and even if things are rolling along and even if Mekhi Bernard is getting 7 yards a carry, you don't trust that that's going to end in a touchdown.
I mean, we saw it Saturday.
You bogged down in the red zone.
Yeah.
You saw it not just Saturday. You saw it against the University of Arizona. You saw it against Arizona State 4 damn times. You saw it so many times this year. So that's really the question. That's a better question. I should delete everything I've ever asked about Bajakian on Twitter so far and say, hey, is this guy going to improve the red zone offense? Because that's what you're really wondering.
And ultimately that's what it is, right? Is if you're going to – I mean, it's cool if you improve by a touchdown, but that's where the improvement has to be. Has to be.
Well, and that's why, Coach Witt has said multiple times this year, you can't trade touchdowns for field goals.
Yeah.
You can't settle for field goals. It's not a winning formula, and that's absolutely right. Now, it doesn't do a lot of good to look backward because it doesn't do you any good. Andy Ludwig, apples to oranges. Let me emphasize it again. Apples to oranges. Andy Ludwig averaged 34 points a game in his 2 years at the University of Wisconsin. Personnel, especially his offensive line and running back room, was drastically different than what Bajakian had at his disposal at Northwestern. Right?
I believe so, if I'm not mistaken.
So you're talking about something totally different here. Now, you go to Vanderbilt, and Vanderbilt is a better analogy. It's more of a apples to apples kind of a thing. When you're talking about Vanderbilt in the SEC and you're talking about Northwestern in the Big Ten. And this is pre-transfer portal era, okay? This is no Diego Pavia. This is no big-time upset over Alabama. This is old Vandy,
Right.
all right?
No NIL, no none of that. Well, NIL, air quotes.
At Vandy, started off at 15 points a game, then went to 23, 24 and a half, 28 and a half at Vandy. Okay, so you improve things, and again, you approached that line of like, hey, you're getting to where you're pretty consistently scoring enough points to now we can maybe win. And then Andy Ludwig in his most recent tenure at the University of Utah. 32 points a game, 30 points a game, 36 points a game, 38.6 points a game, and then 23.2 points a game. Now, that's Tyler Huntley, that's Cam Rising. Whoops.
Whoops.
Bryson Barnes.
Oof.
All love to the pig farmer, but it's where personnel matters, and it's why when I throw Bajakian's numbers at you, I want to remind you that personnel matters. So you're hopefully looking at a guy who's got some skill, and the numbers trends went up at the locations he was at before. Hopefully it looks like that for the University of Utah. But I think that's what you need. You need an extra 7 points a game.
Well, and again, as you said, and we can't lose focus of it, personnel 100% matters.
And that's why I think you have the personnel maybe in every spot except that quarterback spot, which is the most important in the business.
Right. And I mean, and that's not a knock on Isaac in any way. It's just he's a freshman.
He's a freshman.
Yeah.
Anyway. Opening segment of the Sean O'Connell Show brought to you by Alvi Armani and alviarmani.com. If that hair is thinning, Don't worry about it. Just give Alvy Armani a call or contact them at alvyarmani.com. Men, women, they handle hair issues, receding hairlines, bald spots for anybody. All right, so Mike Bajakian, Andy Ludwig, Cam Rising, whoever is calling the plays for this team, execution matters, and you've seen me, if you follow me on Twitter at RealOC Sports, if you've been following me during games, I will throw that out there at least a couple times a game when there's a pass dropped and you know it's going to go for a touchdown or you know it's going to go for a first down. I'll throw it out there when there's a situation in a game where it looks like, oh, look at that. There's a crease, there's a seam, and somebody goes the wrong way or whatever. It's just the nature of the business that play callers get credit when it works, and then when the play doesn't work, everyone goes, what the heck was wrong with that play? Why did you call that play? Now, sometimes that's totally justified. Sometimes I feel the same way, right? Because you're like, there's no chance that thing was going to succeed. No matter how well you execute it, the box count's wrong, the defense just sniffs it out so well, they're executing better on their side of the ball, whatever. But there are situations where you look at a play call, and because it doesn't work out, because of that drop, or because of the failure of an individual player, or sometimes two or three in blocking schemes, it goes nowhere. And then you're like, well, that was the play caller's fault. And it's hard to, at first blush, when you first watch a game, it's hard to separate one from the other. It's easy to be like, whose fault was that? Now, we have the benefit of working in sports, and it's our job, part of our job at least, to make sure that we go through and we rewatch games, especially those important drives, especially the play calls that matter most. In situations like that, oftentimes it is the second Passover where you're like, oh, yeah, he got tackled by this defensive end because the seam was on the backside and he didn't recognize it. Or, right, like the miscommunication between quarterback and wide receiver meant that he broke off his route here, and if he would have found this hole in the zone, things would have been more successful, and maybe that ball doesn't sail over his head, or maybe he didn't cut that route off shallow enough, and that's why the ball skipped at his feet or whatever. And that's not a reference to the Arizona State game, by the way, because we know that all those balls were falling to the turf for a completely different reason. But in that case, in those many cases, the play caller gets criticized for something that the play caller didn't really even do. Or the play caller gets criticized for a failure that didn't fall upon the play caller. And no one is lamenting that. No one's crying for that because these guys now are making $1 million plus in Power 4 football. So if every once in a while you have to take blame that doesn't really belong to you, okay, we're all big boys here, right? But it's just something that we're going to have to pay, I think, very close attention to as a new guy takes over the play calling duties, because this fan base right now is walking into every game. You're going to be sitting down on your couch, sunburnt, all right? You're irritable. Your face is beet red. You got little blisters on your forearms and the tops of your thighs because you fell asleep in the sun. And anything that touches you wrong, you don't like it, right? So you're expecting bad things. Sucks because being sunburnt from head to toe does suck. That's like the default set right now for Utah football fans. And it needs to be, or what you're hoping for, I should say, is that Mike gel, you know,
The good stuff.
and it's been kept in the fridge. You don't have to refrigerate it, but you do because that's like the hack. It feels extra nice.
It feels nice when you get burnt. Well, I mean, I've never been sunburnt, but when you're burnt,
Yeah. What a flex by you.
sorry, there's only 50% of lack of melanin here, and it's on the other side of the glass, not on this side.
It's messed up, but accurate. So you're expecting him to be the aloe vera, and if he's not, right? If he's the guy that comes over and then there's like you hear the sound of the pump top on that bill of aloe vera, oh, it's out. And yet they still start applying that lotion. What are you doing? Don't touch me. Don't touch me. That's what fans are going to do with every single offensive play that is called. What are you doing? Why are you running the ball? And then when you pass the ball, why are you passing the ball? You're supposed to run here. We do it with every play that doesn't work. Well, why is he doing that? Well, because you got to mix things up. So it's just something that we have to keep our eye on collectively, and we have to sort of watch out for within ourselves as you're expecting him to be a fix-all, expecting Mike Bajakian to solve the woes of an offense that just cannot find the end zone once they get down into the red zone. Rewind during the commercial break and see if the play calls were bad or if the execution was bad. Because it's been about 70-30 for Utah football this year probably.
Well, and I don't know if you heard what Isaac Wilson said after Bajakian talked, where they asked him kind of what everyone talked about in that meeting, that the first meeting they had with Bajakian as the OC.
Yeah.
And the heavy emphasis was effort. And it goes back. It could be the play caller, it could not, but it all comes down to just the effort. And that for me was one of the kind of big takeaways from that. And the other big takeaway was, well, he came here to play for Ludd. That was the other big takeaway that Isaac threw out there.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that was sort of everyone feels the same way about Andy Ludwig moving on. It really feels like there's a consensus here. Like, we love him. He was a great coach. It was wonderful while it lasted. Something happened in the last year and a half where it just wasn't working anymore. And by his own volition, by his own decision-making, he said, all right, it's time to move on. And that's fine. But the grass ain't always greener. And so now we've got a new era starting with Mike Bajakian as your offensive coordinator. And I hope, and we all hope, and we all think it could get better. But how quickly is it going to happen? The poll question is out at Real OC Sports. Is he going to improve things 7 points or more per game? Yes or no? Answer the poll at Real OC Sports. All right, Gordy Chiesa is going to stop by. We're going to talk about the Utah Jazz, who begin their regular season tomorrow. Is that right?
No, you got it backwards. Sorry. It's Jordan Wynn and then Gordy Chiesa.
It's Jordan Wynn first and then Gordy Chiesa.
Yeah, we switched it because Jordan had some other commitments.
Jordan Wynn first.
Yes.
So we'll talk about a young quarterback hearing a different voice in the locker room, in practice, in his helmet with Jordan Wynn, former Utah quarterback. Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700. You can always rely on Alonso Sariñana to give you some 311. You haven't heard it anywhere. You haven't heard it on the radio. It's not in your iPod anymore because nobody has those. But it reminds you of middle school or high school, maybe late elementary.
So I've been on a nostalgia kick the last little bit, and because I had a bunch of friends that played this festival over the weekend in Vegas called When We Were Young, like the old Warped Tour homies.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I love that's just the marketing now. They're just like, you're not young anymore, but remember when you were? It's great.
well, as my friend Cameron Collins from the NoFX crew said, when they were young, because we're all still old anyway, right? Well, anyway, and all I was thinking of, like, man, I used to skateboard, I used to play baseball. Somehow, some way, I played in punk rock bands, and that's all I did. And I kind of just wish I did that now instead of talking to my friend Sean every day.
Wow. I'm not going to be offended by that because skateboarding and playing baseball and playing in punk bands sounds cooler than hanging out here. So
That was my youth. And now I don't know where I strayed away from the Lord's light, but this is where I'm at now.
I think you just grew up. I think that's part of it.
Maybe. It's possible.
All right.
I'm not going to wear a collared shirt like you, though. I refuse to do that.
You don't have to. It's not required.
Yeah, punk rock for life.
All right. Can we talk to Jordan Wynn? Are you done with lamenting your past?
Yeah, he's here.
Joining us here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Welcome, Jordan. How are you?
I'm good. Let's talk more 311 and skating. You were reminiscent of my childhood as well, right there.
Yeah. Are you sad that you don't do that anymore? Or are you okay with where you're at now?
You know what? I jumped on a skateboard last week and it didn't go very well, so I'm okay. 311 though, I'll throw on every once in a while, but no go on the skateboarding for me.
Okay. Yeah. Let's. What's the correct age to just hang up the skateboard and never get back on it? You think?
That's a tough question. My dad's 54 and he still drops into empty swimming pools. So I don't know. I don't know what age that is.
Is your dad Tony Hawk? Is this something we never knew about you?
Yeah, wouldn't that be something? No, he's not. But man, that dude can skate an empty pool with the best of them.
Wow, that's crazy impressive. I definitely could not do that. I'm not quite in my 50s yet. But all right, let's. You have some expertise in what is happening at the University of Utah because during the Jordan Wynn era of Utah football, there was turnover on the offensive side of the football with coordinators, with play callers, and there was just constant reorganization, it seemed like, in trying to find the right offensive identity. And that's, of course, happening right now. Andy Ludwig has stepped away. Mike Bajakian has been promoted from an offensive analyst to offensive coordinator, at least interim offensive coordinator. From the player perspective and especially the quarterback perspective, what is this like? What does this feel like as you're walking into a facility and everything is different?
It's a whirlwind, right? I think from what I'm reading, like a group text message went out on Sunday to the players. I'm sure that caught, a lot of people by surprise, and then you walk in on Monday and it's announced publicly and, trying to be an 18-year-old and doing all the things that 18-year-olds do on top of trying to, go to class, trying to win football games. And then now you got to deal with this. It's difficult. You got to,
And you're going to do that, as far as we know, with Isaac back now all year long. And every time we see a mistake and every time we see something that is less than ideal from Isaac Wilson, we say, hey, yeah, you don't want this. But he's a freshman, and freshmen, you're going to have your growing pains. That's a throw you can't make. But he's a freshman. And, a lot of us, most of us, the vast majority of us talking about this, even listening to this, don't actually have any real concept of what it's like to be a freshman quarterback taking snaps in a big-time football game. You do have that expertise. So how much faster is it? How much more difficult is it in that first year, when you are the young guy, when you're trying to be the leader because the position demands that from a quarterback, but maybe you don't have the same cachet, and your muscles probably aren't what they're gonna be. Like, just what is it actually like trying to be a freshman quarterback, mastering an offense when you're maybe not ready?
Yeah, it's it's like drinking out of a fire hose, frankly. It's like you said, everybody's so much faster. Everybody's smart. Everybody's big. In high school you can, in Isaac's case, I'd imagine for the most part, kind of out-athlete, out-talent most of his competition. And when you get into college, it's the same saying, right? It's like the top 1% of high school goes to play college, and then the top 1% of that plays in the NFL. And so, you take the best guy that you ever played against in high school and you multiply him by 11, and that's what you're going against every rep. And it's difficult, especially with as complex an offense as Ludd was running. It's super challenging. But look, at the end of the day, like your job is your job, and you are allowed some leeway, I would suppose, being an 18-year-old. But at some point here in the next few weeks, you would like to see him start to turn the page on that and start to grasp what's going on, start making plays, and start really playing within himself. And then I think we'll see all the talent that he truly has, because I don't know if we've actually seen, the highest form of his talent at 18. I think he's still thinking a lot and trying to play within the system and not make a big mistake. And so hopefully the next few weeks, as he gets more and more reps, more and more comfortable, we see that page turn and it starts to at least slow down a little bit for him.
When did that happen for you?
Yeah, good question. It took mine was a little tough because I remember coming in against Wyoming and I was like, man, these guys are really fast, and they were not very good. And I remember leaving the game going, that was not like a great team, and they were really fast. Then the next week we played New Mexico, and I started to feel pretty comfortable there. And then the following week we played TCU, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not even close. The following week was against San Diego State, and a Rocky Long defense, and I actually felt pretty comfortable. So for me, it was like 5 weeks of consistent reps in practice, consistent reps in games, a ton of film study. And then it started to click, but then you run into a good opponent and it kind of resets it. And it's difficult. I was 19. I was older by a year than Isaac is. I think he's like a fresh 18-year-old. But hopefully, in the next week, 2-3 weeks, we start to see that page turn.
Former Utah quarterback Jordan Wynn is our guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show, talking about the offensive changeover that has happened at the University of Utah. So freshman quarterback Isaac Wilson, who now has several games under his belt as the starter. He's got some reps, and he knows it's his show moving forward. In the offseason, Jordan, all we talked about was how this might be the most talented Utah offense in terms of weapons, especially on the outside, in terms of the pass-catching weapons. We might not have ever seen this collection of talent. And it's been kind of difficult for people to process why it hasn't translated that way, why some of the guys that we thought would have, 500 yards receiving and 6 touchdowns by now have been absent. And you've seen bright spots from Keithy, and there's been some good stuff from Dorian Singer, but it's just been few and far between. As the quarterback, knowing that there is untapped potential, knowing that there is maybe some more pressure with like, hey, I've got a guy in Dorian Singer who's been an all-conference wide receiver. I need to unlock that. I need to get it to him. And I know what Brant Keithy's capable of. And you got this kind of unicorn in Caleb Lohner, so I got to see what he's capable of. Is it, for a quarterback, is it all like, sunshine and rainbows? Hey, I got all these weapons. Or is there potentially, I guess, a downside to it because you got to find a way to get the ball to all those guys, and that might create a pressure situation that wouldn't otherwise exist?
Yeah, I think right now where we're at is probably a little bit of pressure. I think when he first came in at the beginning of the year, it was probably a little more sunshine and rainbows. Because as you mentioned, all off season, all summer, it was the talk of every segment, every person I talked to, was how deep this offense was, how many talented skill position players there were. And we're at a point now where there is starting, to see frustrations bubbling. And at the end of the day, I think, and maybe this was part of what Ludd was thinking, but I would lean more towards the coordinator and the play calling to try and manufacture these guys getting the ball in really low risk situations. I talked about this with Porter last week during the pregame. Like, you have your system, right? But at the same time, you can implement tweaks. You can implement small changes to get the ball out of your hands fast in low risk situations that gets the football into these guys' hands. And I just don't think we've seen that. And so I'm sure Isaac's feeling a little bit of pressure. I had a plethora of guys that I played with, and when they don't get the ball, like, they're okay with it for maybe a week, but come week 2, week 3, they're going to start, chirping you saying, dude, look at me like I'm wide doing here. So, again, we're kind of coming to a point here, with Ludd leaving and some of these frustrations where you got to see something happen to kind of.
Jordan Wynn for a few more minutes here talking Utah football. Freshman quarterback Isaac Wilson will take the team on the road under a new offensive coordinator to take on Houston. There are some vulnerabilities here. Houston is not the best team in the Big 12 by any stretch of the imagination, and you got to try to get to it. A playoff team beginning the season. It feels like the sky is falling, and look, you had a mixed bag of success and some issues with teams that you were on at the University of Utah. The leadership role, not just the make plays role, but the leadership role of a young quarterback and how to get these guys believing that they can do it, that you can do it, all of that. How difficult is it when you've experienced back-to-back losses?
Incredibly difficult. I was fortunate my freshman year to play with some really talented players that I just leaned on them, honestly, a ton. I had guys like Zane Beatles, David Reed, Eddie White, Matt Asiata, Jeremy Brooks. A ton of guys on offense that had played a lot of football, that had won a lot of football games. And so for me, it was more like, look around here. I got a ton of weapons around me, a ton of talent, a ton of guys that know what they're doing. I'm going to lean on them. And you don't always have to be the vocal guy, even though you're the quarterback. Sometimes there is a time and place, especially as a young guy, to look to your side and say, hey, man, I'm young. I'm obviously not performing. I'm confident, but I don't want to lose the power of my voice, right? Because if you keep saying the same things and keep losing, guys just aren't going to listen to you at some point. And so leaning on other guys really pick you up and change. I would lean more towards that for Isaac because, right now it's you got to stop the bleeding and find a way to get a win. And at this point, it doesn't even matter what it looks like. Just get something in the win column to hopefully change the momentum here of where the season is heading.
It's really great to have a quarterback on to talk about these things because it's such a unique position. There is noise out there. Hey, if it's not working with the freshman, where's Brandon Rose? What about Heward? The backup quarterback is always the most enticing and sexiest thing in football when the starting quarterback isn't performing all that well. And we don't know what the practices have looked like for these other guys. I generally, trust the coaching staff and say, hey, they know a lot more than I do. If they're not playing the guy, it's fine. What does the starting quarterback, a former starting quarterback, think about a conversation like, that'll fix it, just pull the guy who's been getting the number one reps all week and put in somebody else? Like, give me the realistic perspective on this.
It's tough. It's a tough situation. Being the starting quarterback, you get way too much credit when you lose and way too much blame when you win. And sorry, I think I need to flip that. Way too much credit when you win and way too much blame when you lose. But you feel the pressure, right? And like you said, the grass is always greener. And it starts to get pretty interesting in the meeting room setting, especially because you got guys that are sitting there chomping at the bit to get reps. You're having a tough go. You're trying to figure stuff out. And the fans are saying, hey, what's this guy like? Can we see some of him? And so it's, again, the beauty of the position is you're one of 11 on offense. So, lean on your guys around you. And again, I think just having a good support staff, I think it's something that really goes unsaid in sports. And I wish it wouldn't, is having people on your side, whether it's in the building or not, that are just there to speak positivity into you and keep you in a good mindset, because it's such a mental game, especially playing quarterback. And so if you don't have those people, it'll weigh on you. And again, you got a guy sitting right next to you who's, kind of rooting for you, but kind of not, because he wants to play. And so I've been on both sides of that. I've been the backup waiting to go in, and I've also been the guy fighting for my life to stay in. And it's unique. And I'm assuming that Isaac's probably never been in this position. I'm assuming he's probably been the number one guy every year he's ever played football for the most part. And so you need some help. You need some people to pick you up and write this thing. And I'm sure the coaches are thinking about it. Kyle's no straight. He said everybody's being evaluated, right? And that's kind of the dichotomy of sports. You're constantly being evaluated. And so at the end of the day, if you're not performing, things might change. But as the starting quarterback, you can't think about that. You got a job to do, and you have to just stay above it and continue to trust in what you're doing and find ways to get this thing fixed.
Sounds a lot harder to actually execute than to easier said than done. But
yeah, definitely.
That's why the quarterbacks get the big bucks and all the girls, because they they got all the pressure. Jordan, appreciate your insight, man. Thanks so much for your time. Really great stuff.
Yeah, always a pleasure, and have a great rest of your week. We'll be talking, I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll chat again soon. That's Jordan Wynn, former starting quarterback, of course, at the University of Utah, a guy who knows a thing or two about being in a lot of these situations that Isaac Wilson faces himself. The freshman quarterback thing, I'm glad we got to talk to him about it because, again, most of our knowledge is based on cliches.
Right.
Most of our, how many, raise your hand if you've been a starting freshman quarterback in Division I football. There's nobody in the room that can say that, no matter what room you're in.
And even then, though, I can't even think of one off the top of my head that you're just that stands out, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, there's been guys who've had a lot of success, but they're rare. They're unicorns.
Yeah.
Think of all the we'll just go through the guys who were great Utah quarterbacks who were in that conversation. Cam Rising didn't have to start as a freshman.
Alex Smith
did not start as a freshman. Brian Johnson got backup time as a 17-year-old freshman on that Urban Meyer coached Fiesta Bowl team, but Brian Johnson came in when Alex Smith had already won you the game, which is a totally different dynamic.
Yeah. Let's see here. Scott Mitchell, not a freshman. Tyler Huntley, not a freshman.
Tyler Huntley got the start when he was a sophomore, right?
Yeah, sure he was a sophomore.
Over a team captain in Troy Williams, which is, again, that happened 3 years in a row for the University of Utah. Such a weird dynamic. So
Travis Wilson, I don't think was a freshman either.
I think he actually did get it as a freshman, but I'd have to go back and look. But yeah, it doesn't happen very often. And it's even more rare that we get a chance to talk to that person. So big thanks to Jordan Wynn for coming on. Great stuff, great insight. And hopefully answers are coming for University of Utah football players, fans, and fellow coaches who are like, hey, do we have what it takes to win these upcoming football games? There's no game left on the schedule that you're just that's an easy win. There's none. There's no more Southern Utahs rolling in, guys. Sorry. All right, before we get out of here, before we take another quick break, I've been beating this to death, and I don't know if you're listening to me, but you need to, all right? The weather's about to get crisp. The snow is going to fall pretty soon, and there's that month or so when winter hits in Utah where everyone around you forgets how to drive in the snow. That's a perfect time to have four-wheel drive, full-time four-wheel drive, available locking differentials. That's the perfect time for you to get out of the city, start getting out into the backwoods, but those roads are not going to be as well plowed, right? You're going to need some capability. You're going to need an SUV that is overbuilt for highway driving, that has more capabilities than just getting you to and from the grocery store. Ineos Grenadier is the answer. Aesthetically, this thing is beautiful. It's a big-time head turner. It looks exactly like those $200,000 luxury SUVs. The price point is nowhere near that. Ineos Grenadier out at Warner, 2400 South, 5600 West in West Valley, out at the Van Center, if you're familiar with their Van Center, or you can go to WarnerIneosGrenadier.com, schedule your test drive, tell them that OC sent you. They've got the full slate of colors. They've got all the available models. It's just a beautiful car, and it's not on people's radar yet. I saw my first Ineos Grenadier commercial on the Super Bowl, this past Super Bowl. So this is like less than a year ago. Be one of the folks that jumps in early, drive it around while it's still unique and before everyone in the neighborhood's got one. Ineos Grenadier, WarnerIneosGrenadier.com. The Hot Lunch is coming next on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700. over the Chargers, which it's still weird to hear him called L.A. Don't like it. Don't like it one bit.
I'm telling you, the Salt Lake City Chargers sounds so much better.
I'd get on board with that 100%. All right. We have a great partner here on the Sean O'Connell Show down at Farmer and Chemist in historic Midvale on Main Street. If you're not already trying their products, I don't know what I need to do to convince you, but chronic pain, sleep issues, maybe it's even like inflammatory problems with your skin. They've got salves, they've got lotions, they've got all these great CBD, CBN products. And Jeff from Farmer and Chemist is kind enough to join us again. Jeff, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
You know, trying to get people to sort of jump on board with a lot of this, and I totally understand the barrier to entry for people because you can walk into 7-Eleven and you can see these brightly colored packages that say CBD, and you're just like, all right, come on. This can't be a real product. What's the biggest difference between that kind of stuff and what you have available at Farmer and Chemist?
Yeah, you are so right. And unfortunately, there are a lot of misperceptions about what CBD is and what it isn't. And one of the things that we like to remind people is that not all CBD is created equal. And you typically get what you pay for. And so there are a lot of products on the market that are hemp seed oil, for example, that has zero therapeutic value, or products that have really low concentrations of CBD in it. And so people may have tried it before and it didn't work. So the key is find a reputable source, ideally talk to a pharmacist, and at Farmer and Chemist, we want to be that resource. All of our products are high potency, third-party tested, registered with the state. They have enough CBD in it to work, and we actually put other cannabinoids in with CBD to focus on things like you said, like in pain and inflammation and sleep and anxiety. So even if you tried it before and it didn't work, probably we're trying something that didn't have any CBD in it or had very low concentrations. And so what's important is what it is, the route of administration, the dose, and again, just and having a resource that can answer questions.
If I don't know whether I need a tincture or a gummy or a salve, how do I find those answers?
Yeah, again, talk to us. So if you have something like a tennis elbow, it might make sense to just use a salve that you can rub on very, very well. Sleep issues, or if you have something like osteoarthritis, which is more systemic pain, then you probably need something like a gummy or a tincture instead of a topical approach. So those are the questions that should be asked, and we would love to have those questions. And again, we would love to have people to us. Yeah, if you mention ESPN 700 and make a purchase with us, we will take 20% off your order, and we can do that either online via our website or in the store. And our store is right in the center of the valley in Midvale.
Right down there. It's a beautiful aesthetic, by the way. So go down, take some Instagram pictures, grab the products you need. It's like going back in time, going down to Farmer and Chemist. Really, really cool stuff. And, of course, we'll be giving away a gift card, a Farmer and Chemist gift card in the trivia section of our show today at the end of the show. Jeff, I always appreciate the insight. Thank you.
Hey, thank you.
farmerandchemist.com. Again, discount for all of the listeners. Just put in ESPN 700 and when you check out. Or you can mention it at checkout in the store. Yeah, I got a real quick thing for you in the hot lunch before we get to Gordy Chiesa. Hot lunch brought to you by our friends at Lemon Shark Poke. I get to go over after the show today, Alonzo, and craft my own bowl at Lemon Shark Poke.
I'm excited to see the bowl, all the accessories that come with the bowl, the whole 9 yards.
Maybe a little coconut rice, some salmon, some pineapple in there. That's the plan so far. But okay. I'm gonna craft things with the master chefs over there at Lemon Shark Poke.
Fair.
Where do you stand on poke? You all the way in, all the way out?
I'm like in the middle. Like I'm
all the way in, dude. I love it.
I'm in no disrespect to that cuisine. It's just that I'm a texture guy, so I'm weird.
All right. Okay, that's fine. Anyway, the hot lunch. We haven't talked enough NFL football because the crises that keep rising for Utah football. But are we paying attention to Derrick Henry? Are we paying attention to what that man has become for the Baltimore Ravens?
A machine.
He is number one in virtually every important rushing category in the NFL this year. And he is on pace to break the all-time record set by Jim Brown in the 1960s. He is right now averaging 6.5 yards a carry in NFL football.
That's insane.
Jim Brown, over 14 games in the 1963 season, averaged 6.2 yards a carry. Derrick Henry could break that record.
It's crazy that we've had some prolific running backs since Jim Brown. Like, the guy that comes to mind a lot is Barry Sanders.
Yeah.
And no one has broken this record or even come close to it.
Barry Sanders never had a great offensive line. Emmitt
Right.
Smith played behind maybe the best offensive line. He's not a spring chicken. This is the third iteration of Derrick Henry in the NFL, and here we are in Baltimore averaging more yards per play than Jim Brown did. And, of course, he's got to finish out a whole season doing it, but that's the hot lunch for you. Derrick Henry is an absolute freak of nature. Even as he rounds into his 30s, the twilight of a running back career, Derrick Henry averaging 6.5 yards a carry for the Ravens right now. 134 carries for 873 yards and 8 touchdowns. He's fumbled one time.
That's the one thing I was going to say is he's had one fumble. I was watching this YouTube short of him on the Ryan Clark podcast. I think it's called RC1. Anyway, they ask him, hey, who's the best running back in the history of Alabama, like Alabama football? And Derek's like, he's like, there's a handful of guys, and everyone's like, shut up, it's you. There's nobody else. It's you, bro.
Well, I mean, there's a couple of Heisman Trophy winners on that list, which is why.
Mark Ingram.
But none of them that were 275 pounds.
Have you ever seen him in person?
Yes.
He's terrifying.
When you see him in person and you kind of don't know what you're looking at, like if you're approaching from the side or maybe you're walking up behind him, you're just like, okay, what defensive end is this?
Exactly. Like you think that's a linebacker, a DN, something like, nope, that's a running back.
It's a running back. You got to tackle him.
That large refrigerator standing right there is a running back.
That's why guys who play corner and safety make executive decisions all the time.
You have to.
And they're just like, you know what? I'm going to shoestring this. I'm going to let him run past me. It's a crazy thing.
Well, it's like when we were talking in Arizona with our friends at dinner, talking about how DK Metcalf looked tiny next to Megatron.
Yes.
Like that still is just it boggles my mind.
Anyway, Derrick Henry is the feature of the hot lunch today because that guy is just unique. He's special. He's never played for a team that I really love. You know, the Ravens are kind of my AFC team because that's my little brother's favorite team, so I've watched them a lot. Fair. But so it's cool to see him having this success and this resurgence there. But wow, 6.5 yards a carry. That's like great running backs in high school have that. Great running backs in college have that. Great running backs in the NFL usually go for like 5 yards a carry.
Yeah, like an elite
like great running back.
Yeah. By the way, poor Jerry Jones. Like, what do you mean we missed out on Derrick Henry? what are you going on about here?
Don't ever say poor Jerry Jones again.
That's true. That's a flag on me.
Jerry Jones has created every single one of his own problems.
100%.
All right. Utah Jazz open their season tomorrow night. It's finally here, NBA fans. Gordy Chiesa swings by. We'll talk about it on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700. Sean O'Connell Show here. A day ahead of the Utah Jazz tipping off their regular season. NBA basketball back, college football in full swing, the NFL in full swing. Hockey has taken Salt Lake City by storm. Game night tonight at the Delta Center for your Utah Hockey Club. Joining us now to talk about the Utah Jazz, to talk about the NBA season, which actually tips off tonight, Gordy Chiesa, our resident NBA insider. Gordy, how are you?
OC, I'm doing fine. That's right. Tonight should be interesting matchups with the Suns and the Lakers, and with the Celts and the Knickerbockers. So this is the NBA OC's 79th season as far as being in existence, and Utah Jazz basketball, this is the 51st year of the franchise.
Pretty intense. Okay, let's talk Knicks Celtics. Let's talk Timberwolves Lakers is the late game tonight at Crypto.com Arena in Los Angeles. Which of those two matchups intrigues you more?
Celts, New York. Last year, the Celts played absolutely great with 64 wins. Knickerbockers was a distant second. But the Knicks have this grit, and it's very hard to repeat. So I'm looking forward to see the game tonight. I'm glad you corrected me as far as the T-Wolves, who have done a great job as far as their roster. And the Lakers, tremendous also with a new coach in J.J. Redick. So in the NBA, there's so many compelling stories. It's just amazing about what goes on.
It's going to be a fun one to watch, I think, this NBA season as it shapes up. Now, look, there's going to have to be patience for Utah Jazz fans. We've talked about this kind of all off-season long, the long-term rebuild, the game plan in trying to make sure that you hit that Goldilocks zone of developing your young players but not winning too many games, pushing yourself out of a favorable. I don't want to say finished project because you have 82 games to really kind of find out what this team is. But, you know, when you have a roster this young and you're tipping off your regular season, how polished is it going to look for the Jazz based on what the ceiling for the year is?
It'll be choppy, like all situations where there's so much anxiety. That first game is incredible as far as it's the first time literally since last season you're playing in a meaningful game. In preseason, it's a lot of the players don't play as far as the regular minutes as far as floor, and now they will. So there'll be anxiety. Usually the first quarter for both teams, including tonight's game also, they'll shoot erratic. There'll be some crazy turnovers, and eventually they'll settle in. In Jazz basketball, they're a young team. They're trying to improve themselves defensively, which is absolutely important, but they do have talent. The young players are good. And in Colin Sexton and Larry Markkinen, they have two guys that really can outplay other teams' two-guard and we'll call them stretch fours, meaning Larry Markkinen. So it should be interesting. OC, last year the Jazz win 31 games this year, last season, and this year they'll be, I think, in that same range between 29 to 33 wins. And so the players are not going to cooperate as far as go full, try to get it high in the lottery mode, because these people are very highly competitive.
Yeah, I mean, 29 to 33 wins, that's too many for a lottery pick, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it will. Again, it's that who'd ever thought that you don't want to win? I mean, so the players aren't going to cooperate. These guys, if you're Colin Sexton and Larry Markkinen and Walker Kessler and Jordan Clarkson and Keontae George and John Collins, you're playing to win. So it's we'll see how it all plays out. No one knows the answer until you start competing on the floor, and that's the local teams and also who you play against. So that makes the NBA fascinating, because the game is won on the court / in between the lines versus you and I talking about it in studio.
So are we going to see any rotational surprises, any starting lineup surprises even for the Jazz as they take to the floor for the very first time as a regular season squad?
No, I mean, they should start Keontae George, Colin Sexton, Larry Markkinen, Taylor Hendricks, and Walker Kessler. That should be the starting lineup. And then off the bench quickly, Isaiah Colley's hurt with the hamstring, so it should be possibly Patty Mills, Jordan Clarkson, Cody Williams, John Collins, and those are and maybe possibly Johnny Zuzang. Those are the guys that are going to play a lot as far as that's their 10-man rotation. With injuries, early foul trouble, that could slightly change. So I'm excited. Now, for the Grizzlies tomorrow night, just a quick note about the Grizzlies. They're absolutely banged up. So the Jazz will have a good chance to knock them out, because not playing for the Grizzlies is G.G. Jackson's out with a broken foot. Out is Vince Williams with a shin injury. Out is Jaren Jackson with the strained hamstring. Out is Luke Kennard with foot soreness, and out is Cam Spencer. So they're out. So the Jazz, and let's not forget, the Jazz play OC. Out of the first 4 games of the season, they play 3 in the friendly confines of the Delta Center. Tomorrow night against the Grizzlies, Friday versus the Warriors, next Monday on the road against the Mavs, and next Tuesday against the Kings. So the Jazz should get off to hopefully a good start. Last year, just for a reference point, the Jazz unfortunately struggled at home. They were 21-20. So if they go forward in a positive way, they've got to be more dominant at home.
Gordy Jays is our guest here as the NBA season tips off tonight. Jazz season tips off tomorrow night. He's our NBA expert on the Sean O'Connell Show. This is, I don't know, maybe a weird, out-of-nowhere question. Are floors different in the NBA? Are some floors bouncier? I know I hear every once in a while there's like a dead spot on the wood in a certain place or whatever, but is that something that players care about, think about, have to go out there and kind of get a feel for the hardwood in an away arena? Is this something that actually exists today, or is it pretty uniform?
No, absolutely. The answer is yes. Every floor is slightly different. Even though it's the same dimensional, it's different. The Boston Gardens, now TD Center, historically has some dead spots on it. And so that's first thing. And also is that just the rims are softer at certain arenas. So when you play in just generally speaking, when you play in Phoenix, the rims are definitely slightly softer, which means what? The touch will help advantage for the shooters as far as playing. Also, when you play in the Madison Square Garden, the rims are softer. So this helps the home teams, and it helps also the visiting teams to adjust. So the answer is absolutely yes. That's that slight home court with a physical or mental advantage.
Okay, another reason I asked that question is because you've got hockey tonight at the arena, and this is a new setup for the Jazz, even in their home floor. You now have to deal with the load in, load out. The setup is different. You got the ice under the court kind of thing, which has never been the case before, at least not to my knowledge. I don't think they've had games like this. And I wonder if that can affect even, for the Utah Jazz having to make that adjustment. Will it be different than last year, I suppose, because you didn't have hockey here last year?
Yes, it will be. Yeah, very much. Just historically speaking, when you have a hot for the Jazz, it's much colder. So you have to be able to adjust and get yourself warmer to begin with. And also, in the Delta Center right now, Sean, they're giving almost like an entertainment view where the lights around the arena are off, so they look almost like a theater atmosphere, very similar to L.A. and also to New York as far as that look. So there'll be a slight period of adjustment, but as always, the players will be able to make that quick adjustment, and they're going to shoot straight. More importantly, the most important thing, OC, is that how hard you play. That your effort and your determination, besides the skill factor, will be huge as far as getting wins. And so it's a phenomenon, and that every team will go through it. OC, what I want to do historically, what I've done over the years, is that with the start of this season, I want to give you the 6 award winners of the preseason award winner predictions by me.
Okay, let's do it.
Here we go. MVP. This season, I'm saying it's going to be Shai Gilgeous-Alexander of the Thunder.
Okay.
The Defensive Player of the Year.
Hold on, I'm writing these down so I can either chastise you for being dead wrong or I can celebrate you for being dead on.
Oh, that's right. No, I've been criticized many, many times. That's all part of it. Defensive Player of the Year, Victor Wembanyama of the Spurs.
Okay.
Sixth Man of the Year from the Milwaukee Bucks, Bobby Portis.
Okay.
Most Improved from the Thunder, Jalen Williams. Rookie of the Year, we're going to see him tomorrow night at the Delta Center, Zach Edey of the Grizzlies.
Ooh, you're on the Edey train.
The answer is Sean. He hustles. I mean, it sounds so trivial, but Zach Edey, that guy at 7'4", that guy changes ends very quickly, and he plays hard, and that he can block shots. He makes a lot of the late great Mark Eaton. He's a much better athlete, Zach Edey, than Mark was, but he stays on the floor until the very last second to block shots, which is absolutely a skill, which gets him in lesser foul trouble. Coach of the Year, Phoenix Suns, Mike Budenholzer. I think he's going to be Coach of the Year. And then here's my final four. And I'm not going to give you the prediction until the season starts evolving. Here's my final four. In the East, Boston and New York. In the West, Thunder and the Suns.
Boston, New York, Thunder, Suns
And the
in the
Suns.
West. All right, I love it. That's no Jazz in there for the finals bid. Shocking, but we'll deal with it.
It's interesting. With the NBA, though, there's just a factor will be injuries and also team chemistry. And by the way, are your stars really stars?
Yeah.
A lot of times, hey, so-and-so averaged, 25 points a game, but is he a difference maker? And that's a huge factor in the NBA, that you're in playoff games, your difference makers got to be stars in the fourth quarter. And that's on both sides of the ball. And so it'd be interesting to see. Now, I'm personnel, they have superior coaching, and then we'll see how it all plays out. It's going to be fascinating.
Last thing before I let you go. The Lakers are going to trot out Bronny and LeBron. It'll be the first father-son duo to play a regular season basketball game together. Are they just going to check this box and then let Bronny do the G League thing?
Yes. The answer is yeah. But Bronny's a good young talent. Pick number 55 in the draft. So LeBron, it's amazing. LeBron, he'll be 40 on December 30th, which is incredible. We've never seen a guy play at that level, at that impactfulness ever in the history of basketball. And so it's going to be really a cool thing as far as him and his son playing on the same floor. But Bronny should be in the G League developing his skills to try to get regular playing time with the Lakers. The Lakers have a good squad. They're playing to win. There'll be an element of, as a matter of fact, the Lakers' best young player as far as a rookie would be Dalton Knecht from Tennessee. He's a knockdown shooter. And so he's the better player than Bronny is right now. And then but they're both going to hopefully Dalton Knecht will play with the varsity, meaning what? The main team right now, and Bronny will play will shuttle in between with the Lakers and also with the South Bay Lakers. And interesting, Sean, just quickly add to that. There's 125 international players now, as we speak right now, on open day roster, including 6 continents representative, and the most players from a foreign country this year, as we speak this minute, are from Canada, with 21 players from the NBA from Canada, 14 from France, and 13 from Australia.
Wow. Look at France. The basketball surge out of France is wild.
Yeah, very much, and it's the most recent as far as the newness of France as far as the players being in NBA. In 1992, David Stern, that was the original dream team, and that was the goal to make the NBA as far as a global sport, and they've done that, and it's the most amazing thing. Remember now, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is Canadian, and just think about Sean, that as far as last year's first 5 NBA selections were Shai Gilgeous-Alexander from Canada, Luka Doncic from Slovenia, Giannis from Greece, Nikola Jokic from Serbia, and the only American was Jason Tatum.
Wow.
That was last year's first-team All-NBA. So it's truly a global game.
Love to see it. Love to hear from you, Gordy. Thanks for your stuff as always.
Can we do that one as far as our list?
Oh, I thought you already gave me the list with your predictions. No, give me the list.
Oh, I have to hit the list quickly. This list is the all-time leaders in games played in the NBA, career-wise. And just think about it, is that what are some of the attributes? Is that you have to be tough mentally, you have to have proper diet, you have to get plenty of sleep, you have to have a high pain threshold, and you have to have old-fashioned luck. And also you have to have winning teammates that you want to keep training. That makes it a beautiful thing. All right, dozen. Here we go. Number 12 all-time in NBA games played, Jay Kidd, 1,391, meaning Jason Kidd. Number 11, Mr. Fundamental, Tim Duncan, played in 1,392. Number 10, he's the assistant coach at Utah Jazz as we speak right now. His nickname was the Jet. He was a tremendous player, Jason Terry, with 1,410 games. Number 9, Kevin Willis, 1,424. Number 8, his nickname was the Big Ticket, Kevin Garnett, 1,462. Number 7, his nickname was the Mailman, including 42 games with the L.A. Lakers back in the 03-04 season. Karl Malone played in 1,476 games. Number 6, he's going to play tonight in L.A. versus the T-Wolves. LeBron James has played in 1,492. Number 5, all-time leader in games played, John Stockton, played in 1,504 games, showing including 609 consecutive games, one time with the Jazz. Number 4, all-time, Dirk Nowitzki, 1,522. Number 3, recently inducted to Hall of Fame. His nickname was Half Man, Half Amazing, Vinsanity, Vince Carter, 1,541. Number 2 all-time in games played, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar with 1,560, and the all-time leader in the most games played in the NBA history. His nickname was the Chief. Robert Parrish played in 1,611 games. Quickly, just one more note. This guy was vastly underrated. He played for the University of Utah. Do you realize that Andre Miller is 17th in the NBA as far as games played with 1,304 games?
Wow. A lot of longevity for Andre, yeah.
Guys.
Wow, incredible. Robert Parrish, the Chief, man. I've never
With
seen
a
a
high-arcing jump shot, and he was a floor runner. So let's hopefully someday there'll be other Jazz players in that list as far as the all-time games played.
Gordy, thanks as always.
Thanks, Sean. Peace out.
Gordy Chiesa, our resident NBA expert here. Man, 1,000+ games in the NBA. That would be a lot of jumping.
That's a lot of jumping and running.
Just so much.
Yeah.
All right. It's a game night for the Utah Hockey Club. They're back at the Delta Center against the Senators of Ottawa. Belle Fraser, insider, joins us next to talk hockey on ESPN 700. a game night at the Delta Center. Not for the Jazz. That's tomorrow. Utah Hockey Club back at home against Ottawa, welcoming the Senators. There's some links on this team to the Ottawa Senators. Coach Bear spent a little bit of time in that system. Joining us to talk a little hockey, Belle Fraser, insider. New to Salt Lake, but not new to the hockey game. Belle, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing great. Glad to have you back.
Happy to be back. I think going on the road was important in the beginning of the season. 4 games, it's the 3 East Coast games and then Anaheim. And a lot of them said it's just the off-ice bonding that can help chemistry on the ice. The plane rides, and they all stay in the same hotel, and they're doing team dinners and team activities. So I think that was good for the road trip. And then when you pick up 5 out of 8 points on the table, that always feels nice. I think they had a bit of a sour taste in their mouth after losing against Anaheim in overtime. I was talking to Alex Kerfoot. He kind of, felt like that was one they maybe could have pulled off. But I think this team has pleasantly surprised a lot of people, especially with the caliber of competition they've had early in the season. And then, they come back against the Boston Bruins on Saturday, and little fairy tale story for Michael Kessering, who's from New Hampshire and grew up a Boston Bruins fan. He gets the goal against them in overtime to win it for Utah on home ice, and that crowd went crazy. So, it's an exciting time for the team, and they now have, I believe, 5 of their next 6 games are at Delta Center. So Jack McBain was saying it felt like they were away it felt like a month. So I'm sure they're glad to just be back in routine. They're practicing at the Oval. They have their games at Delta Center and can kind of just find that consistency, throughout their game, which Coach Turingi has really harped on, is that they're young and there's going to be growing pains, but their biggest focus right now is just finding consistency on a night-to-night basis.
It's always good to, kind of grow into yourself with a road trip. It wasn't all good news on that road trip, and we came into the year talking about the fact that this squad needs to figure some things out defensively, and then Dursey down with an injury. We got some more insight on the fact that Marino's not going to be back anytime soon. Is this team thin on the blue line?
Yeah, it's kind of ironic. So I feel like coming into the season, the biggest conversations was how deep they were on the blue line. That was the main thing that general manager Bill Armstrong focused on in the summer, bringing in Sergachev, Cole, Bortuzzo, Marino, extending Sean Dursey on a contract too. And then, Marino, coach said the other day that he's now month to month. We previously thought it was week to week. So that's not the best news. And then Sean Dursey suffered an upper body injury against New Jersey in that second period. He didn't return to the game, and it sounds like it's going to be 4 to 5 months for him. Oh. Elliot Friedman reported from Sportsnet on the 32 Thoughts podcast, which is just not what you want to hear. Sean Dursey, he was such, a core part of their defense group last year in Arizona, and signing that contract this year, he said he worked so hard over the offseason. He had a great training camp, and he was on the first pair with Sergachev for the first few games before he got hurt, and you don't know how that was going to change once Marino came back and that type of thing. But he looked great. He's a two-way defenseman. They used him on the power play, the penalty kill. He's kind of known for his offensive flair, but, he takes a lot of pride in his defensive game, blocking shots, kind of getting in those tough areas. So that's a guy that you really can't replicate. And I think that's been the message within the Utah locker room since losing him is no one should come in here and try to change their game to be Sean Dursey. Like, that's just why go away from what you're good at, because no one's going to be Sean Dursey. So, a lot of the guys and coach has said everyone just needs to do what they do, but do it a little bit better for a longer period of time, because the ice time, Sergachev is logging more than 25 minutes a night, especially for 2 games. They went down to 5 defensemen when Dursey got hurt, and then the next night Bortuzzo got hurt. But he's back, so that's good. And they called up Patrick Koch from the AHL to carry as a 7th defenseman. So they're figuring it out. But yeah, a section of the team that once was kind of going to be a high point from them is now quite thin, but they've responded well. The young guys who have been put in bigger positions, like Balamaki's on the power play now in place of Dursey, and Kesslerin's on the first pair. They've produced, and against the Bruins, 2 defensemen scored, no forward scored. It was Kolyachonok and Kesslering. So I think they're kind of embracing the moment. Obviously, you don't want to see a teammate get hurt, but it's opening up a lot of more playing time and an opportunity to kind of prove yourself for guys like the younger guys who are on all 3 pairs, Kessering, Balamaki, and Kolyachonok.
I saw, Coach was pretty complimentary of Kesselring, but he also said he's kind of the only guy we have that we could have elevated to that first pairing. So how big a leap is that for Kesselring to now be playing alongside Sergachev in the first pair?
I mean, huge, right? And what Coach was saying was just he can play those minutes. And Sergachev, whether it's sustainable or not, he's going to be out there for a while every night for the foreseeable future. And he said that Kesselring was kind of the only player that could handle that amount of ice time, but handle it without kind of his game lapsing, that he could be out there and he could still be physical, he could still be fast, he could still break the puck out. And he's not just kind of like a body out there with Sergachev. So I think that's great. And, I talked to Sergachev about playing with Kesselring because obviously it's a different type of player than Jersey. And he said, he's great at taking the puck out of the zone, carrying the puck out, and just his speed too. And it's kind of been a common comment about Kesselring is that he has all the tools and it's just a matter of putting it all together. And he has a great shot too. You've seen it the past 2 games. He hit the post, he gets the overtime winner, he scored in Anaheim. And I think that's just building his confidence to get the first pair of minutes, and then he's out there for more important moments of the game. He's out there for the last minute of a third period for a tied game, when they're up a goal, when they're down a goal. He's on the ice for overtime, and those are situations he maybe wouldn't find himself in before. So, and it helps that he's been producing, right, just mentally. So, and he said it too. It's hard to lose Jersey, you don't want to, but he's trying to prove that he can be a top pair defenseman on a nightly basis and prove to the coaching staff that he can handle this pressure. He's viewing it as an opportunity. So I think he's excited about it, and it's only been 2 games with him up there, but it hasn't been a disaster. It's been more positive than I think a lot of people expected.
Utah Hockey Club insider from the Salt Lake Tribune, Belle Fraser, is my guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show. You should already be following Belle at Belle Fraser. That's FRASER1 on Twitter. All right, who do we expect to see in goal tonight against Ottawa?
I believe Connor Ingram. I don't think it's going to be much rotation. I know we talked about that before. I think in the modern NHL, your starter probably plays 50 to 60 games, and I think they're just going to ride Ingram until he's tired. And I think Ottawa is a sneaky team. You're going to want to have your best guy up there, and I think it's also harder when you're thinner on the back end to go with your backup goalie. Not that Velka can't handle a team like Ottawa. He's a good goaltender too, but I think you just want maybe a little bit more stability back there when you're already down, 2 of your top defensemen. And Ingram has started off the season really strong. A lot of the players have just talked about how calm they feel playing in front of him, that you obviously don't want to turn the puck over or have a bad game in front of him, but you kind of feel a sense of stability when your goaltender can come up with the big saves. And, Ingram has a really interesting mindset to hockey. He talked about how it's kind of just a game. He's like, I love playing hockey. I love my job, but I know if I couldn't play tomorrow, I'd still be a functioning adult with a life and values and opinions. And he says that's what kind of takes the pressure off for him. He opened up last year about, some mental health issues he's had. And I think it's given him kind of a broader perspective on the springing all over the place and frantic. He's pretty collected and minimal movement, tracks the puck well. And, Utah's going to be in a good place if he can continue doing that for the stretch of the season.
Where is Ottawa most dangerous for this club?
It's hard to say. They've been a team where I think last year you thought they were going to perhaps make a push for the playoffs, and then it kind of fell off. But in the same way that Utah, I think maybe you can underestimate them at times. I think that's the same with Ottawa, and they're a gritty, grinding team. Brady Tkachuk is so easy to point to as a guy that is going to hold the other team accountable. He's going to get in your face. The Tkachuk brothers, but the Florida Panthers too. And I think that's something that Utah has done a good job with, countering other teams' physicality. And although they're young, they're kind of not afraid to go back at it. You saw Josh Doan fighting in the Anaheim game, and he's only 22 and technically in his rookie season. But Ottawa, they have depth too. They have veterans, and you kind of see them using the balance of, they're not parallel to Utah, but kind of balancing their younger talent with veterans too, Nick Cousins, Claude Giroux, So I think it's going to be a pretty even matchup. But again, that's kind of every night in the NHL with the parity in this league. You never know what it's going to be, because I think the Boston Bruins maybe thought they could come out with a 3-0 win and they didn't. Same with the Rangers. So it's hard to shape up teams in this league. But I think it'll be a good matchup. I wouldn't expect it to be a blowout, but who knows now that I say that on air, right? It could be the exact opposite.
Last thing before I let you go, I think last time I had you on, Gunther was out to his torrential explosion that has since slowed just a little bit. He's still playing well, but we're heading into, I guess, the third week of regular season play for this Utah Hockey Club team. Who's been the biggest surprise for you so far, one way or the other?
That's a great question. Maybe Barrett Hayton. I don't know if it's a surprise, but he's the first-line center, and he was out last year with injury. He played, I think, only 33 games last year, and he had 10 points, 3 goals, 7 assists, and he just couldn't find his consistency or his scoring touch when he came back from injury. And, as a center between Clayton Keller and Nick Schmaltz, you're kind of there to set them up, but you also want to produce for yourself. And he was a high draft pick for Arizona, and I think they were kind of just waiting for him to hit his stride. And this year he has 6 points, 4 goals, and 2 assists through 6 games. And you're kind of seeing him look more confident, look more comfortable in that position. And something big with him is just earning inside ice. He's always in front of the net. I think 3 of his goals have been tip-ins. 1 was him driving the net. He's kind of not afraid to get in front of the crease and get to the areas that coach believes that Utah can thrive scoring goals, the greasy areas that, a knock and rebound goal counts the same as a wrist shot from the point, So I think he's really bought into his role, and then it just boosts the confidence when you're able to produce on the score sheet too. There's a lot of important things that Hayton does away from the puck. Being a center, you're obviously a lot in the defensive system, but I think for him, just seeing it on the score sheet that he's helping them win games on a nightly basis is great. And we talked to him yesterday. He said, it definitely feels good being consistent, but it's so early in the season, so you kind of can't get complacent or comfortable. But I think that's a really big bright spot for Utah's top 6 that, he's gotten off to a good start and hopefully stays healthy this year and is able to continue to do so.
Belle, always appreciate your time. Great stuff, as always.
Thanks for having me.
That is Belle Fraser. Follow her on Twitter, Salt Lake Tribune, Utah Hockey Club Insider. That is a young woman who is fresh out of college and is an absolute encyclopedia already on this Utah Hockey Club team.
It's impressive how much, I don't know anything about hockey. It's ice soccer as far as I'm concerned, but she knows so much more than I will ever know about hockey.
Well, and look, she knows a lot about hockey. She grew up in, kind of that East Coast hockey ethos sort of environment, went to a great hockey school for college. But maybe next time we have her on, I'll spend a little bit of time. I guarantee she wasn't coming out of BU thinking, I'm going to cover Utah hockey. So I need to be an expert on the former Arizona Coyotes. And she has made herself an authority on this team in short order. It's pretty awesome.
And again, it's, like you said, whenever you take a job in sports, you have an idea of what that job is, right? And it never happens that way, ever.
You're probably like, hey, I'm in Boston. I'm going to graduate. I'm going to cover the Bruins.
Yep.
Nope. You're going to a brand new hockey town.
In the Rockies on the West Coast.
It's awesome. Appreciate Belle's time and her insight. And yes, this Utah Hockey Club that came in, it's like the best laid plans. We saw this happen with Utah football. We've seen this happen with the Utah Jazz and the whole hey, we're going to stink, but not too much, and we're going to figure out how to balance Lowry and all this. The best laid plans for this Utah Hockey Club franchise was to use some of the draft capital you have, use some of the assets that you have, make some trades, and the liability from last season, your defense, was going to become a strength. And then injuries have decimated that unit. And now you're worried about potentially your best player in Sergachev, or at least your best, most experienced player, the guy who's got the combination of both of those things, is now having to play an extra 2 shifts a night over what you probably should have someone his age playing.
And the thing I've learned about hockey is, so there's the shifts, there's the periods, then there's the intermissions. Hockey is not only a brutal game, it's a very long game, right? So you have to be kind of economical with how you use your shifts, how guys are used. That's why it's still impressive to me that, like, not a guy that doesn't play here, but he's an older guy that's been around the league for a long time. Sidney Crosby is still playing at a high level. Ovechkin playing at a high level, considering how, I mean, like when they get thrown up against the boards, that's insane. That's insane.
Who do you think, who's the oldest player in the NHL right now?
Isn't it Ovi? I thought it was Ovi.
It might be. No, Mark Giordano
of
the Toronto Maple Leafs is 40 years old.
Yeah, but here's the thing. He's from Canada.
Oh, wait. You know what?
Oh.
He's 41. He's 41 years old. This Google is old. He's October 3rd, 1983. He's 41 years
41.
old.
And just out there getting after it and just getting thrown up against the boards. I mean, that's, again, hockey is not I know it doesn't necessarily get the respect it should in this country, just even from the toughness standpoint. But, man, you have to be so tough to do that. And it's cold. It's a cold sport. So for someone like me, it's just not going to work.
It's not that cold because they're geared up and they're sprinting all over the place. So they're getting sweaty.
And then the most impressive thing about hockey for me, you have to fight on ice. There's no breaks. Like you can't stop. No, there is forward momentum. There's inertia. There's physics that you can't. It's crazy.
I've said this and people usually push back on it. Actually, Jeff Schwartz, who's going to join us in 8 minutes to talk some NFL and college football. Jeff is one of every NFL player thinks that the best athletes are in the NFL. Like, if you talk to baseball players, if you talk to NBA guys even, they'll tell you, like, they'll allow for something else. You talk to anyone in the NFL, and they're just like, no, NFL players are the best athletes.
That's true. I've heard Stevenson Sylvester say that multiple times.
I really believe that hockey players, I think hockey is the hardest of all the professional sports, all the big four at least, to be good at.
Yeah.
It requires the most of you because you have to have the perfect mix of athleticism in order to be a good hockey player. Now, look, do you have to be 6'5" and 300 pounds like you do in football? No. But when you talk about, like, demanding all of the skills necessary to be called athletic, hockey demands all of it. So
toughness, grit, effort, and I mean, and I don't know how much they do, like set pieces and stuff. I know they do some of them, but even then, that's hard to do in hockey.
Yeah.
That's really hard to do in hockey. And then situational awareness in hockey, I feel like you have to be way more aware of stuff than any other sport. No disrespect to football. There's a lot going on with football, but it starts, it ends, and then it starts again. Whereas with hockey, never stops.
Yeah, it never stops, and it's completely insane. And then you got to be able, you have to have the fast twitch and the long twitch muscles. It's really crazy impressive. And the guys are just built different in that they'll, like, lose a tooth or two and just keep skating. So,
hey, my nose is ripped in half. Cool, I'll be out there in 2 minutes.
Yeah, it's awesome. Anyway, it's really fun to have hockey back, or not back, but to have hockey in Salt Lake at the NHL level. I got chastised, by the way, when we were talking about how we need to figure out our chants better and we need to, like, arenas. Like, if you go and you watching Bruins hockey, everyone there grew up on hockey. If you're if you're in Toronto at a Maple Leafs game, everyone there knows exactly what they're watching at all times. It's not yet the case. And I mentioned that, and somebody just came at me. Just like, you're underestimating our knowledge of hockey. It's like, well, maybe that person is very knowledgeable about hockey, but all 16,000 at the Delta Center are not super knowledgeable about hockey, myself included. I'm throwing myself in there.
I mean, that same person doesn't know that you snuck in a gallon of fry sauce in order to celebrate a hat trick, so that's unfair to you. By the way, can I pull back the curtain for a second to thank Belle for something real quick?
Yeah.
So yesterday, as you know, there was a little bit of breaking news that happened on Sunday night coming into Monday around the Utah football program. She was originally going to join us yesterday, but some stuff happened. She was nothing but a pro about being willing to move stuff around because, as you know, we booked the show kind of based on what's going on, and that's the way it goes. And she was way cool about it. And so big thanks and shout out to Belle for being a pro, especially not being a seasoned pro yet. If you will.
Yeah, doesn't have to say, okay, cool, I'll join you tomorrow. Can just say, all right, never mind then, we'll do it another time.
Yeah.
So big thanks to Belle for her insight, her time, her knowledge. I'm just going to steal things straight out of Belle's mouth, and I'm going to make it my own opinion, and it's going to make me sound smarter about hockey.
It's not really plagiarism if it's coming directly from someone's mouth, though.
If it's not written down, they can't prove you stole it.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Plausible deniability.
I love that. By the way, Underdog Fantasy, this is a great way to get involved in the whole hockey thing if you're kind of new to the sport. So I'm just going to pull up, and I've got the app downloaded on my phone, at OC Show, if you're not already playing. That's the promo code for a free pick'em, and also $1,000 when you make your first deposit. It'll if you put in OC Show, you can unlock the possibility to earn $1,000 in bonus cash. But here's what you do: you go to NHL, you go to View by Game. All right, you scroll down, you find OTT at UTA. That's us, Ottawa at Utah, and then you're going to pick higher or lower on the total set. So let's see, 27.5 saves for Connor Ingram tonight against Ottawa. Even against Boston, he had lower than that. So I'm going to go lower. All right. Brady to Chuck. Can I get fight minutes? Can I get penalty minutes for? Nope. They're not allowing that.
Wait, you can pick fight minutes?
No, I was being facetious there.
Okay, I'm about to say I'm all in. I'm all in.
You know what? Higher or lower 3 hits from Tkachuk? Yep, I'm going with higher on that one. And then let's see, who else do we want to find a cash pick 'em for here? Clayton Keller, 2.5 shots, higher or lower than 2.5 shots for your Utah Hockey Club captain. I'm going to take higher on that. If I am correct on all 3 of those picks, I more than double my money. So that's how you play Underdog Fantasy, underdogfantasy.com, or at the very easy-to-use mobile app. At OC Show is the promo code when you sign up. Jeff Schwartz joins us in 5 minutes. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700. A little Easy E to start your afternoon. Sean O'Connell Show. Jeff Schwartz, former Oregon Duck, longtime offensive lineman in the NFL, football expert on the college and the pro level, and sometimes degenerate gambler. Friend of the program joins me. Hey, Jeff.
I feel like you're only a degenerate if you lose. If you win, you're good. Unfortunately, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer today. I've wagered a lot on Utah games this year, and I think I've lost all of them. Either direction.
You're just salting the wound of Utah fans now?
No, I had Oklahoma State when you guys went to Oklahoma State, and that didn't matter. I had you guys this weekend. That didn't go very well. So it doesn't matter at all. I'm saying that either side. Either I take Utah or I'm against Utah. Either way, I lose the bet.
Okay. Well, let it be a lesson to you, I suppose. All right. I want to start in the college football ranks. Utah, you saw this. Andy Ludwig has stepped down as the offensive coordinator, and now they've promoted a guy who was an analyst, Mike Bajakian, who came from, I guess, most recently Northwestern as a Power 5 program, and now he's going to be calling plays. He's got experience doing that at several different schools. I wanted your thoughts on this whole offensive coordinator situation for the Utes.
So, obviously, I think that we can agree that, he resigned. I would imagine that, the dignity of that is different than being fired, right? Or being let go. And maybe Ludwig felt like it was, time to move on. I don't know. You would have more insight into that than I would, obviously. I think the one real kind of critical or negative about the Utah offense is that obviously take out the Cam Rising games, right? That was, he got hurt against Arizona State, but Wilson has gotten worse. Would you agree? He's sort of gotten worse this season. And I understand he's a true freshman, and you're going to have periods as a true freshman that are tough. Look at Raiola for Nebraska, right? It's not always easy. But I think with the offense getting worse, and TCU, by the way, can't stop the run. You guys couldn't run the ball against TCU. So I think those are the sort of the reasons maybe why. But I'm not sure that you're going to get much different offensively from the analyst being promoted. His offenses have not been good when he's been in charge of offense either. So I guess I don't really know what this comment. Andy Ludwig has a great career. He got the most out of a lot of quarterbacks. Remember, back all the way back in 2019 with Tyler Huntley. He's gotten the most out of these guys. I feel like if you keep him, doesn't he have a month to figure out Wilson? I feel like he could have done that, but obviously, Utah felt otherwise.
Yeah, look, it became an untenable situation, and I think as much as you try to stay deaf to what the noise around a program, probably the expectations outside the program, elevated expectations inside the program, and at least put more pressure on the expectations inside the program. And here you are in your first 3-game winning streak in like a decade, and unfortunately, this is what happens. And I'm with you. I'm trying to be optimistic, but from the empirical standpoint, the data we have on it is that that Bajakian has never coordinated an offense that is more successful than a Ludwig offense. That hasn't happened. Now, he's been at some schools where there wasn't a lot of talent relative to the competition, and so there's, I guess, hope there that he can do more with more, but you're still dealing with a freshman quarterback along the way, and that's always going to make it tough.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I don't want to call it like a panic move, but this is like the first time I've seen sort of Utah do this. I've been covering the team, right? I mean, since basically 2018, where things are not going well. Certainly, they're not. But it's easy to chalk up, right, the ASU game to just Cam Rising not healthy, hurt his knee early in the game. Okay, Arizona game, kind of a true freshman. Just like you have those true freshman games, you couldn't get the ball in the end zone. It wasn't really. I think it was. 2 fourth downs did not convert early in that game. I think that's what it was. And then you didn't play well against TCU. I don't. It feels panicky, right? And Utah has not done that with Kyle Whittingham. They've been very measured, and they sort of make decisions. I think, in a taking their time to figure things out. I just felt like this was a little bit of a panic move.
Well, we'll see how it works out. Houston is not going to be the toughest test left on the schedule, but then you got a bye week and you have BYU, who might be the toughest test left on the schedule. You also still have Iowa State, and UCF is no slouch.
Yeah.
So you can make an easy argument that it only gets tougher from here for the University of Utah. And it's going to be a weird road moving forward, especially the background of this season was not just those high expectations, but the continuing question of like, hey, is this the last ride for Kyle Whittingham? And really all indications were that it's leaning that way. Do you think the way it's gone so far, we're slightly more than halfway through, do you think that the way it's gone so far is more likely to prove catalyst for Kyle Whittingham to make that decision, or is it less likely he walks away on a disappointing year?
Well, so I think it's more likely he's not back next season than less likely. And I think the reason why is how far is the team away from being like Big Ten competitive next season? Like, I think that's a part of the calculus, right? Is like how close is Utah to winning, 10, 11 games next season if he stays? I don't have the answer for that. You know that more than I would. If he feels like Wilson's going to stay, first of all, which I think I was reading a big reason he came was Andy Ledwig, right? Now, obviously, let's hire a OC he likes and he stays. Not a big problem. But how close are you back to where you want to be? Because, if you retire now, obviously, the disappointment of this last season will probably weigh on you. Now, of course, you look back at the Rose Bowl appearances and so many of the incredible things Kyle Whittingham has done over the years. You shouldn't just harp on this season. But I could see him wanting to say, hey, man, next season I think we're going to win 10 or 11 games. I'll stay one more season. So I think if he does step down, and they did announce Morgan Scalley, obviously, as his replacement in the previous offseason, so we know that that's in place. We've argued about that before. Next season, Sean.
Yeah, I think that certainly is at least part of the calculus. But the other thing about the transfer portal is, like, you don't really know. I mean, by the end of this year, your roster is going to look different than the end of spring ball, and that's
correct.
An unfortunate reality in the transfer portal era, or it's a fortunate reality if you have the funds and the charisma in order to bring guys there. And as we have seen with several other schools, really it's all about that quarterback position. So if you've tagged and said, yes, Wilson is the guy, we want him moving forward, or maybe you've identified someone that you can get from, a smaller school that's having success, and maybe that feels likely for you. So it definitely changes the calculus completely. We're talking football with Jeff Schwartz, my longtime co-host on Pac-12 Radio, expert at the NFL and the collegiate level. I do have to give you a little bit of time to, take a lap or stand on top of a mountain and talk about your number one ranked Oregon Ducks, at least for now.
Oh, at least for now. Thank you. Look, I just think that Purdue win was sort of a culture win for Dan Lanning, right? I mean, how many times have we seen that game go a bad direction? 6 days after a big win on the road against a really bad team. I mean, Alabama, it happened against Vanderbilt right after the Georgia win, right? Now Vanderbilt's much better than Purdue. I just think it was a good culture win, Sean. 35-0, just sort of didn't give Purdue any opportunities. 21-0 after 3 offensive drives, like no opportunity to be in that game whatsoever. Now you got Illinois, and so I like where the program is headed. I think that Dan Lanning. This is 2.5 years after losing 49-3 to Georgia, and we're number one in the country. Which I did realize we had not been since 2012. I thought 2015 we went to play a championship game that season, but we never made it to number one in the country. So I just like where the program's at. That's it. I mean, look, I don't know if we win a championship or any of those things anytime soon, but I like where and the culture that he's built, and it's fun to root for this team, man.
All right, the rest of the rankings have got people stirred up around here because you and I spent 6 seasons covering a conference where no matter what happened, people were going to find reasons to undermine any good things that were going on. Right, even the last year of the Pac-12, where Washington ended up being, people were just like, no, they're not that good.
No, I was one of those people.
The parity in the conference was like a bad thing. It was never a good thing. And now Utah and BYU find themselves in a conference where the exact same thing is happening.
Yeah.
Iowa State is undefeated. BYU is undefeated. Can't even crack – barely can crack the top 10 at number 10 for Iowa State. There's 6 teams with 1 loss ranked above BYU right now. It's silly. It's stupid.
Yeah, you know how this is. It's a lot about conference affiliation, right? And how good or bad someone thinks your conference is sort of where you're at. You have to be sort of like above and beyond extraordinary to sort of get that stigma of where your conference is out of the conference. Like Penn State's third in the country. I don't think Penn State's the third best team in the country, buddy. Like, there's no chance they're the third best team in the country, but they're in the Big Ten, haven't lost yet, and they get the recognition of being, if Penn State BYU were to play neutral site, that game is less than a field goal. I mean, less than a touchdown, right? I mean, it's not. I don't think those teams are that far apart. But I also think the way BYU has won a couple of games, and we always, we did this with Washington last season too, right? They won 10 straight games by 10 points or less, which is, that's not typically a way that that you win games long term. So I think people are looking at BYU and thinking there's a little bit of fugazi there. But you can only play the teams in your schedule, which BYU is doing. And they keep winning. There's a value in winning. We talk about this all the time. Learning how to win is better than a pretty loss, right? Some ugly wins are better than pretty loss. So, look, these teams are going to play each other. I think Iowa State has a couple tougher games left. BYU's got Utah, obviously, as we talked about. So we'll get it sorted out. But the question becomes, like, what if there are 3 or 4 11-1 Big 12 teams? How many get in the playoff? I mean, Kansas State has a chance to do that, right? Iowa State has a chance. I think they play each other the last week of the season too. So BYU has a chance to be 11-1 or 12-1. What happens if 3 teams are in that situation where they can be a playoff team? Or are you taking a 2-loss Big 10 team, a 2-loss SEC team over a 1-loss Big 12 team? This feels like a discussion we've had, as you mentioned, for years in the Pac-12 conference, where it's like, how much do people put into our little conference? Can I tell you one team, by the way, that we've talked a lot about that it's funny that no one's talking about now? Colorado's kind of good, Sean.
Yeah, they're kind of good.
And I made this point on the radio yesterday. I'm going to talk about my podcast tomorrow, is that if it's the media's fault, not us, not me and you, the media's fault, I don't know if it's Colorado's fault that we're not talking about them. It's because for 18 months, we were told how good Colorado was when they were not good. And we kept pushing back, and then I think a lot of us just said, we're done with this conversation. We're just done with it. And we used up all our energy on Colorado trying to tell people that they weren't good when they were bad, because people were trying to tell us they were good. And now when they're actually good, Sean, this is the time they deserve the praise. But people spent entire last season telling us how good Colorado was when they weren't. I think a lot of us are like, just over it. We're just over it. And they're 5-2. Like, they're legitimately, I mean, they could win 9 games this year. Legitimately a good football team, and no one talks about them because they used up all their goodwill last season.
They lead the Big 12 conference in sacks right now, which is, we kept talking about, defensively they don't have it. Certainly at the lines of scrimmage they don't have it. Right now they're the best pass rushing team in the Big 12 conference. And look, the Big 12 doesn't have any great pass rushers, doesn't have a great pass rushing legacy in 2024, I should say. But they're at least, I didn't know that we would see them leading in any defensive category, and here they are.
Yeah, I mean, if the pass rushers, they have a benefit of playing from ahead, which is, sack numbers are, beneficial when you get to play from ahead, and they've done that because offensively they've been really good, and they did it without Travis Hunter for the most part last weekend. He was played a half, was a decoy a lot on offense early in that game. So, they're playing good football. We'll see if they win this weekend, but the Big 12 has been fun this year, man. It's been a fun conference.
Yeah, it's fun because you don't know who's going to win, and then again, we had this conversation for many years. I like football where you have to actually watch the game to decide who's going to win. However, the pollsters don't like that, and playoff committees don't like that. But an expanded format fixes it, at least in some regard. We don't talk about it very much here in Salt Lake City, but there's an undercurrent of distaste for all things associated with Los Angeles, and USC continues to stink it up under Lincoln Riley.
I hate it. It's just it's so sad, Sean.
No
It's just so
way this
sad.
lasts, right? I mean, I don't know what his buyout is. It's a private school, so we don't really know, but there's no way he stays after this year, right?
I hope he stays forever.
Stop
He
it.
never leaves. If he never left, it'd be no. I think they'll give him one more year. You can sell. At least he's been selling everyone sort of this trenches rebuild. Like they're in year 3, but they're in year 1 of reloading the trenches. And I think he can last one more year. Now, if he doesn't make a bowl game, which I think they beat Rutgers this weekend, I would imagine. I mean, they're probably a bowl team. Their schedule's not. They go to Washington. I mean, they should beat Washington. So the thing about it is they keep losing these close games because they're not very physical in the trenches, and they sort of go away from running the football. They're same as last year. Marshawn Lloyd last year averaged over 7 yards a carry. Sean only had like 10 carries a game. They don't run the foot. They just, for whatever reason, Riley sort of lost his fastball at USC. I think he stays one more year. When you fire a coach, you have to think about who you're going to hire instead. And I don't know right now, and we talked about this, we didn't know Lincoln Riley was going to be hired either. So I don't know who they hire, man. Like, who is that guy? To me, look, this is my – USC should go hire, like, Barry Odom, like UNLV's head coach. Like, hire, like, young, aggressive, up-and-coming coach hungry for the USC job. But they're going to hire someone like a Lincoln Riley again. It's not going to work out. They were just the one time they hired that guy was Pete Carroll. That's who that was Pete Carroll, right? Young, uber aggressive, sort of program changing personality, and it worked for them. And since then, they've just been hiring like USC dudes or Lincoln Riley. But I think he stays one more year. Do you think he stays one more year?
I don't. I think that
you think he's fired or he takes another job?
Alonzo whispered in my ear, said it's about $80 million the buyout. So maybe that motivates them to keep him around. But I just think that, I mean, he was brought to bring national championships to USC. Not conference championships, national championships to USC. And now we're talking about them maybe missing a bowl game this year. It's crazy. Although, you know what? The NIL thing is really interesting because Utah's number 1 recruit this season, or this and all the story is that it's just because of the NIL situation. So they're still throwing a bunch of money around, even despite the lack of results.
Yeah. Did that play a role, you think, in the Ludwig situation, the kid decommitting, or not at all?
I doubt it.
People were trying to infer that on the internet. I don't think that has anything to do with it.
I don't think so. I mean, look, the Ludwig situation, it's crazy. End of the 2022 season, Notre Dame tries to steal Andy Ludwig from the University of Utah.
And Jim Harding.
And Jim Harding. Your offensive coordinator and your offensive line coach are both offered by Notre Dame, and they decide to stay. And now here we are a year and a half later, and Andy Ludwig is out. And Harding, who had co-coordinator duties in the past, it doesn't get the elevation, doesn't get the nod, even though the running back, he's been a run game coordinator, and even though they have one bright spot on offense, and it is Mekhi Bernard in the running back situation. So it's a really interesting time in that building from a player perspective and certainly from a coaching perspective, especially with the whole uncertainty about Coach Witt looming.
Yeah. Look, again, I don't want to open up wounds, but this has been it's been surprising. I did not expect this from Utah this season. I thought they were going to win the Big 12, and it's been surprising. I just didn't. I'm sure you didn't either. So it's not like I'm saying anything that you didn't know, but you won't find a bigger fan of Utah who has no connection to the program other than me, and I it's been surprising, and many reasons for it, I think. But you can be traced back to your quarterback not being healthy, man. That's a big problem. You were fine with Cam Rising when he was healthy, and when he doesn't get healthy and you roll with a true freshman, this is what happens sometimes.
All right, a little bit of an NFL discussion here.
Yeah.
Derrick Henry is averaging 6.5 yards a carry right now. He's number 1 in the league in everything that you care about for a running back. How are the Baltimore Ravens and Derrick Henry doing this late in his career?
So what's interesting about Baltimore is they're doing one thing really well, and it's helping them finish games. Like Derrick Henry is just at the end of games, Sean, he is just rolling teams. Like early in the game, he's good, but then sort of just because of, I think, the way that their offense operates, they don't have to use him. He doesn't have to be a 25 carry guy. Then you get to the fourth quarter, and the defense you're playing is tired, chasing around Lamar, and trying to make sure all the weapons that they have get good cover. And then here comes Derrick Henry, fresh and ready to go, and downhill and just steamrolls opponents. It's incredible, man. He might be our last Hall of Fame running back right now. I mean, McCaffrey, I think has a discussion, but he's been hurt too much. I think, right? Hasn't played enough. Henry's wasn't going to Hall of Fame, but I think the Ravens just use him really well, and they unleash him in the right moments to get the most out of him.
I was hoping after I was boarding a plane at 6 a.m. Sunday Saudi Arabia time, I'm like, okay, well, I'm filtering in some results. The Utah game not going the way that anyone hoped it would. Niners Chiefs. The Niners are they're gonna bounce back, and they're gonna make me feel better about my life, and that didn't happen.
When you fly first class in those seats, are they comfortable?
Well, more comfortable than they are for you, because I'm a normal sized human.
How was your Saudi Arabia trip?
It was interesting. It's
you wear a
always
tux?
different. No, I don't wear a tux.
You posted a video of yourself, and it looked like you were wearing like a tux.
I was wearing there was a charcoal gray suit, but I had a black tie on.
I think you're lying to me.
You gotta go full tux now.
I have a tuxedo. I could go full tux, but I don't wear them unless they make me wear them. When they did the championship fights on New Year's Eve, they would ask us to wear tuxes because it's a New Year's Eve kind of thing. But they haven't asked since, and so it's just been hanging in my closet.
Your photo on Instagram of your profile picture is at least 10 years old.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. Okay, I was about to say, you don't look that young right now.
And it looks like you have a neck tattoo.
He sort of might. We don't know. We're still up in the air on how many tattoos Sean has.
Lots.
It's still I will tell you one thing about OC. Like the first time I saw one of his videos with his shirt off, I threw up my mouth a little bit, but then the tattoos because it just doesn't match your personality, dude.
It doesn't even make sense. What kind of personality does someone need to have?
To have a full chest, like a full angel on your chest, you don't. I don't know. Your personality does not scream someone who has basically a full upper body tattoo on the front side of your body
and back side, actually.
And your entire back.
Wait, Alonzo, does it fit? Does it fit his personality? I don't think it does. I was shocked.
So the type of tattoo doesn't fit the personality, but it does fit the personality that he hides there.
He's ashamed of it, isn't he? That's what I thought too.
He's
got you need to button down. You put that top button all the way around your neck, so you're suffocating yourself. You have to just unbutton it and let the tattoo hang out.
Bro, you need to go deep V.
Deep V with a necklace.
If I'm headed to Trader Joe's or something where I'm not going to be judged for my tattoos, I'll go deep V.
Yeah, you should go deep V with the chain. You got to. You know what?
You're telling me they're going to judge you in Saudi Arabia for full chest tattoo?
You know what? So in Saudi Arabia, it's dubious. They don't really tell you one way or another if any other religious symbology outside of Islam is forbidden in Saudi Arabia.
So strike one on you.
So they're like, it used to be your tattoos of any kind could not be visible. Now they've loosened that up. But they're like, hey, so if you have religious tattoos, they can't be visible. And I'm like, well, I don't know if this counts or not, because there are angels in Islam. And so maybe they'd be like, oh, that's fine. But, I also have a Celtic cross on one arm. So it's like, got to be careful.
So you went hoodie the whole time in Saudi Arabia?
Dude, I can wear a T-shirt and people don't see my tattoo.
That's true.
I don't have to go hoodie.
But
that's why they just hid it. That's why it's just surprising. It's just hiding from that.
Wait, does Jeff Schwartz have any tattoos?
No chance.
Jeff Schwartz, he would get a tattoo, but they have to shave your body hair to tattoo you.
Right.
And tattoo shops don't have weed whackers, so they wouldn't be able to get it.
And if I got a tattoo, the problem is I would just get mocked endlessly by my family, who just
your wife
can't
would just brutalize you.
the other day I said to her, I put on an Oregon. I put on an Oregon sweatshirt. Alex put on one too. I said, Alex, like, who's number one in the country? And my wife just instinctively said USC.
Why? There you go. There we go.
Because she
She's not
hates
even
me.
a USC fan.
She just because she's heard how much I hate USC. She doesn't like me. So she just constantly just finds ways to troll me.
If we can find clippers to clip off the body hair off of Jeff, my suggestion would be we have to get the duck on you. That's the best logo in sports, in my opinion. It dreads me to say that.
You pronounce worst wrong.
It's
What's your beef with the duck?
It's a pretty good logo.
It's literally Donald Duck. Who cares?
Wow.
Look, Oregon,
there's a lot of strong positions I've heard today.
I have admiration for Oregon as a program. I like Dan Lanning. I think Oregon's cool. I have no beef with Oregon. Jeff has made me even more interested in Oregon. As much as I can't stand Jeff, like, he's a great guy to talk sports with. So
right.
We had a lot of fun doing a show together. Oregon was really good. Utah was really good. And so I have some affection for Oregon. But that logo stinks out loud.
Wow.
It's fantastic.
It's a great logo.
I think I have to leave on this note.
Yeah.
Actually,
I
we are
can't
over
deal with
your
this.
time.
Yeah.
We're over
Yes.
your a lot of time.
Mario Cristobal tattoo. Think about it.
I'm gonna get a Dan Lanning tattoo like my wife on the side of my chest.
Jeff's gonna get a full sleeve tattoo of prominent Oregon Ducks. He's gonna have like Steve
Mariota.
Prefontaine, Marcus Mariota, Uncle Phil Knight up on the shoulder,
and Sabrina. We'll just ignore her performance game 5.
and Sabrina Ionescu. Perfect.
1 for 19.
Dude, don't start, okay? I've been spewing this hot take about how Sabrina Ionescu is Caitlin Clark, except she never got that breakout moment because of COVID.
And it's true,
That's
he did
fair.
it for 24 hours in Tempe.
But Clark's not going 1 for 19 in the game.
Well, that's
5.
what I mean. And then that happens. So now I can't crow from the mountaintops about that hot take anymore.
No, you're right about that. If they had won in 2020, she would have been Caitlin Clark special. Like that would have been. She was the first pick in the draft. She's not a terrible player, but still, yeah.
All right, dude.
All right, I gotta go.
Time.
Bye, guys.
Jeff Schwartz, Football Insider. Today's show brought to you by Canyon's Edge Sports Pub in Holiday. Canyon's Edge is the place to be for all of your games and sporting events. Delicious food and drinks, lively atmosphere, every play on one of the many big screens. You can't beat it. It's located near the mouth of Big Cottonwood Canyon. Canyon's Edge Sports Pub, where every day is a win. All right, lots to get to still as we wrap. Whoa, man. This show has flown
It
by
has flown
today.
by. So you know we're having a good time.
And we're way over time, man.
Shot
Isn't
clock violation.
it your job as a producer to make sure I stay on clock?
Sean, we've known each other for quite some time. When have I ever, even in your ear, said, shut up?
Many times.
Well, in this environment, I'm saying.
ESPN 700. promo code at underdogfantasy.com or on the mobile app OC Show, and they're going to hook you up with an opportunity to win $1,000 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit. Last night, I went higher than half a touchdown for Derrick Henry. I went higher on 38.5 receiving yards for Cade Otton, and I went higher than half a touchdown for Rachaad White. And my $5 cash pick'em turned into $22. So do I feel like a genius with lots of money in my Underdog Fantasy account? Yes, I do.
You can retire.
OC Show is the promo code for you to sign up. All right? We started the show today talking about the transition of power at the University of Utah with this offense. Andy Ludwig is out. Mike Bajakian is in as the play caller. He has experience calling plays, and I gave you some of the numbers. I also asked a poll question, do you think that this man, Mr. Bajakian, is going to improve Utah's offensive output by 1 touchdown per game? I just gave 2 options to answer. I wanted to keep this simple. Yes, the weapons are there, or no, the offense is dead. Right now, 68.5% of the votes coming in on yes, the weapons are there. If this man can improve your scoring offense a touchdown per game, which I think is a fairly reasonable expectation, or that's at the edge of reason, I should say. If you ask for 10 points a game, that's way too much. If you're telling me, hey, I need a new offensive coordinator to give me an extra 14 points a game, it's just not going to happen. So I thought that was the right threshold to set it at. Right now, the University of Utah offense, as he takes over, is scoring 24 points a game. If he can increase it, Mr. Bajakian, if he can increase things by a touchdown per game, now we're talking about that 30-point threshold, 30-plus points a game. With this Utah defense making some of the plays that it has, you should be able to win football games moving forward. Now, Utah's schedule gets tougher as the season progresses. Houston this week, BYU still on the slate. Colorado's a good team this year. At least they're playing well right now. And then, of course, Iowa State. Those are all winnable games, but they're also games that you could lose very easily, and games that you will lose if you're only scoring 7 points, 14 points, maybe even 24 points, probably even 24 points. So I think that's the task. And the numbers I gave you from the previous stints for Mike Bajakian, when he was at Tennessee, when he was at Cincinnati before they were a Power 5 school, when he was at Boston College and at Northwestern, there were 0 seasons where he scored 30 points a game. There were 2 seasons where he approached 30 points a game. There were 4 seasons in that span of time where he was the play caller where they averaged more than 24 points a game, which is Utah's current points per game average in 2024. Tennessee, BC, Northwestern, and Cincinnati. The man has had some play calling duties.
So let me ask you this. With the change that's occurred, obviously, going into this weekend, what is your biggest concern at this point? Now that we know Bajakian's the OC, everyone knows that Isaac's the starter.
My biggest concern is that the players are the problem. And I know that sounds harsh, but that is my biggest concern. My biggest concern is that this team is just not as good as we thought it was, and that no amount of coaching changes or schematic fixes is going to alter the fact that you're just not getting the push that you need on downs where everyone knows that you're going to run the football. People are rolling their eyes like, why does everyone know you're going to run the football? Right? You know where that matters most? In the red zone. And that's not happening. My biggest concern is that when you're playing now a true freshman quarterback, regardless of who's calling these plays, it's still going to be up. He's going to hold on to the ball for a little too long. He's going to make the wrong read. He's going to not see the coverage at the line of scrimmage and be able to change the play, might not even be given the opportunity to change the play. I don't say that to be hypercritical of a individual young talent. It's just to say, look, that's my concern. You asked the question, that's the answer. My concern is that if Pete Carroll was calling this team, the plays for this team, or bad example, if Lincoln Riley was the offensive coordinator at the University of Utah, because he's really great at that, right? Or Garrett Riley, his brother, or who's your favorite, insert your favorite offensive coordinator in all of college football. Chip Kelly is calling this team's plays. I'm still worried that you just don't have the horses you thought you had.
And so along with that, I mean, obviously it's multifaceted too, because injuries have just decimated this team, right?
Right.
Like we no matter how you chalk it up, that's what it is. If it is the players, then, and I'm just asking this hyperbolically, going into next year, what do you do?
Well, you do what every team does now that has – look, this is a talented team.
Right.
When I say my concern is with players and not having the horses, like some of that is effort-based, some of that is attitude-based. This whole thing this week where guys are taking to social media with the mysterious emojis and with the ... like tweeting out the ellipses and tweeting out the wasted talent type thing, that's an attitude and a culture thing that has not been a problem at Utah for a long time. And part of it's because, like, they're Zennials, right? This is a different generation, and that's just how people express themselves now. I don't want to put too much stock in it, but it's different than what we're used to seeing. The concerns are usually kept in the building, and you only feel like you get the real story if you're somehow privy to that, if you're somehow privileged enough to talk to people who are in the locker room and for them to give you real insight. And I know that you get this because of your proximity to the team. I know that you get some of the real stories, and it's usually in-house stuff, right? I mean, it's usually four walls conversations.
Yeah, I mean, I'm privy to it with this team and like with the Dodgers, for instance, right? A lot of it is four-wall conversations, and sometimes it's kind of unprompted conversations where the team themselves, and we've heard about it coming out, they'll have team-only meetings. Like, we heard it, obviously it's not a great example, but like with the Dodgers, they'd have a rallying cry in Atlanta. They got everyone together in the clubhouse after Glasnow went down, and they had a conversation where like, hey guys, let's figure this out. And sometimes that's what you need, right? You just have to understand that we're all literally on the same team. There's no, Jeff alluded to it, right? Jordan Wynn alluded to it. Your backup is low-key hoping you get hurt so you can play, right?
Well, it's just the nature of being a quarterback. It's an unfortunate reality where, you got to – there's only one guy who gets to play there.
Yeah, and so – but you still have to buy in, right? And going back to what, Isaac and Makai both said yesterday, they all had the same comments with the media. Hey, we all talked about buying in. We all talked about effort. We all talked about being here for each other. And I think that's important, especially right now with as much scrutiny there is on it, because expectations were sky high, and record scratch. Now we're here, and they have 3 losses in a row, which this program has not endured 3 losses in a row in almost 5 years, if I'm not mistaken, more 7 years, something to that effect. So I mean, it's kind of uncharted water, at least for this current iteration of Utah football as well.
All right, take a break here. We're gonna give away some gift cards. Lemon Shark Poke and Farmer and Chemist gift cards, if you can answer the topical trivia question coming next on the Sean O'Connell Show. It's ESPN 700, Utah's #1 sports talk. All right, Lemon Shark Poke gift card for some delicious fresh fish on a nice bed of rice. You can also put it on salad. Great sauces, plenty of options. Lemon Shark Poke right here on 300 South in Salt Lake City, just east of our Broadway studios. And Farmer and Chemist gift card as well. If you could answer this question. I was gushing about Derrick Henry, Baltimore Ravens running back. He's 30 years of age, and he's doing something. He's on pace right now to set a single-season running back record for yards per carry. How many yards per carry is Derrick Henry averaging right now in NFL football? 877-353-0700. Derrick Henry's yards per carry average, which is a record-setting pace. How many yards per carry for the NFL leader at this moment?
By the way, do you agree with Jeff's position that this may be the last kind of NFL Hall of Fame running back guy?
I don't, actually, although I realize why he brings that up, because there's a couple of reasons why you could say that and have good reason to say that. For, I don't know, this year it's been a slight return to being a run-heavy league. And because of that, I think you'll see that pendulum continue to swing. And also because Hall of Fame voters adjust their goalposts. They move their goalposts based on the era that players play in, right?
Right.
Like Joe Namath is a Hall of Fame quarterback. Have you seen Joe Namath's career stats?
They're not great.
He had more interceptions than touchdowns.
Yeah.
Joe Namath was a bad quarterback, but he's a Hall of Famer because of what he meant to the league at that time. So I don't think Derrick Henry will be the last Hall of Fame running back. As the league progresses and changes and morphs, so do the expectations. He's probably the only obvious Hall of Fame running back that is currently a starter in the NFL. I don't know who else you would say is an obvious Hall of Famer. Christian McCaffrey has a shot, but like Jeff said, he's banged up all the time.
Yeah, your guy C-Mac C-Mac is a generational talent. It's just the bummer is the injuries.
Yeah, like Kenneth Walker, I think, has an opportunity. He's a really great back, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But right now, Derrick Henry, and we have plenty of correct answers that have come in. 6.5 yards a carry for Derrick Henry, which is just ridiculous at the NFL level.
It's just ironic that you're talking about how mid Namath was when Spence Checketts walks into the studio.
That was totally coincidental.
It was.
The numbers are the numbers. You're not wrong.
I mean, it is what it is. And look, he's the most obvious answer when you talk about guys that don't make sense from a numbers perspective. But also, how do you tell the story of the NFL without talking about Joe Namath? And I think that is the real criteria for me in deciding who's a Hall of Famer and who's not.
Your point about how the voters kind of adjust their criteria is spot on. And it's really in every single sport. So, yeah, I mean, you know, the legend of the guarantee and the Super Bowl win and who he was in the biggest media market in the world, you know, mattered in a way where you understand the inclusion. Look, if it was all about numbers, Pete Rose would probably be in the Hall of Fame. And everyone has a different piece of criteria. It's interesting hearing you talking about Derrick Henry because now my mind is spinning about what backs currently. McCaffrey's the obvious one, but yeah, he's never healthy. Which backs in the NFL currently are odds-on Hall of Famers? The fact that you can only think of one for sure is wild, man. Yeah. It really is.
I mean, Saquon Barkley, if he can stay healthy, has the skills and the ability. But longevity is going to matter because in this era, we still care about that longevity.
Yeah.
And by the way, what Derrick Henry is doing is going to adjust the expectations for all the running backs around him because he's 30 years old as he does this. And a lot of guys are out of the league by the time they're 30 years old.
Do you think they'll adjust their running back criteria to fit the modern day tenure of a typical running back? It's like 4 or 5 years, right?
You have to.
Yeah.
You absolutely have to. And the record books, they don't change, right? You don't get to alter the numbers in a record book, but Hall of Fame voters are not going to stop putting in running backs. If you're the best running back of your era, then they're going to put you in. And that's just how it's going to be at every position. It's been like that since the inception of Halls of Fame in whatever sport.
This is wild, dude. I'm pulling up the list of just simply the best backs in the league, and you're absolutely spot on. There are two names. One's Derrick Henry. The other's probably McCaffrey. And there are names like Breece Hall. I mean, these are kids, Bijan Robinson, right? Give them some time. But if they only do this for 4 or 5 years, it's an interesting historical conversation.
It's like Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley had 2 good years in the
Priest Holmes,
Yeah.
like go down the list. If you're a fantasy football player, you remember like that one running back that was good for like 2 years, that won you the title, then disappeared.
Dude, Peyton Hillis was on the cover of Madden.
Hillis.
Yeah.
He was on the Madden cover.
Didn't he get like some accident last year trying to save a kid?
He almost died. Thankfully, he survived. Peyton Hillis saved his own child and niece or nephew from drowning.
That's right.
And he himself drowned in the process, but saved both of the kids. And thankfully, they were able to save him. But he was hospitalized. He was in a bad way for a little while.
Yeah.
What a heroic performance by him. After he regained consciousness and was able to talk, he was just like, yeah, I would have been fine if that's what cost me my life.
Yeah, I mean, he seems like that type of dude.
So
type of dude that would do that.
Pretty
As
awesome.
opposed to be like, hey, just swim to the side, kids.
Yeah.
Peyton Hillis is the type to go all in.
He went out there and got him. Anyway.
How are you, Sean?
Great. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I have a lot of sad Ute football fan friends that I hear from all the time now. Programs have downtimes. Kalen DeBoer is learning that. Dude, I read this morning, Alabama is about to enter November with multiple losses for the first time since 2007, which was Saban's first year.
Well, we've chuckled about how spoiled a fan base can get, and nobody's more spoiled than Alabama.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I would imagine you're getting a lot of the same feedback. Like, how is this happening?
Yes. Yeah, and we're all turning the page. You and I think we're kind of on the same page. Like Andy Ludwig, when it all comes out in the wash, and we're going to talk about him as the greatest offensive coordinator of this era, the greatest play caller. The numbers support that. The results on the field support that. But can't look back now. And Mike Bajakian, I pulled up his numbers. I gave people his numbers as a play caller at the Power 5, Power 4 level, and asked the question, do you expect or do you believe that he can add a touchdown's worth of offensive scoring production to this Utah football offense? Because that's really that's why you made the change.
Yeah.
And that's why you've elevated him. You need about a touchdown at least. So, yes or no, does Spence Checketts believe that that's a possibility for this Utah football team with him calling the plays?
Honestly, no. I mean, I guess a possibility, sure. But it's more about how the players are executing. I have a hard time. Look, there were several series of play calling that I wasn't thrilled with, but that's just the deal. The offensive coordinator always falls on the sword, it seems like. But for about 6-7 years, it honestly felt like at that spot for Utah football, it was like, does anyone have Dave Schramm's number again? Like, we just kept, and Andy Ludwig is the one who solidified the position. But listening to Mike yesterday, you heard him. He said, well, the system's the system. Right? So this is not somebody from the outside coming in to install a new system, which you don't want to do midseason anyway.
No.
But what does Mike have at his disposal that Andy didn't have? Andy has a pedigree that Mike just doesn't have.
Correct.
You reference his numbers. I looked them up. They're not all great. And he's lost jobs, from time to time because it hasn't been good enough. He's put in a tough spot, okay, because I'm sure he didn't think this was coming. He talked yesterday about he came here to work for Andy.
Yeah.
Right? And so he's in a tough spot because the system is the system. The players are the players. Cam Rising ain't walking through that door if I can Rick Pitino you. So how much can you really do when the system is already installed? He said there's going to be a few wrinkles. I mean, you tell me, how much can he really do when the system's already in place?
Well, again, it's you're handcuffed to personnel or you're the benefit of your personnel, right? And that's Coach Ludd was that way. We saw him handcuffed by personnel at Vanderbilt, and we saw him the beneficiary of great personnel when he came to the University of Utah, and he had, he made the most of Tyler Huntley, and then, of course, Cam Rising and that whole situation. But we saw what the offense looked like when he was calling plays for Charlie Brewer.
Mm-hmm.
So, your personnel matters a lot more than your offensive coordinator does.
Yeah. Before we get out of here, let me ask you a question I've been asking my football guests so far. What are you willing to say about what's still on the table? Because you can go a few ways here. Utah has head-to-head games against 3 of maybe the top 4 teams in the conference. BYU, Iowa State, Colorado.
Yes.
Right? So BYU's a 2-point favorite this weekend. This feels a little bit trap game-ish. They're traveling a couple of time zones. Now, they will be in Orlando, and there will be Mormons all over the place. So there are going to be plenty of BYU fans, LDS, excuse me, plenty of BYU fans in that stadium.
Yeah.
I don't know that BYU escapes this season unscathed. Okay?
Oh, no. Look, BYU's not going to finish the year undefeated. That's no knock on BYU.
Yeah.
I'm with you. This is exactly the game that is a nightmare for BYU.
Yeah.
Because every family is going to go.
Right.
Every wife wants to go.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone wants to bring the kids.
Mm-hmm.
There are going to be distractions galore, and you are traveling 2 time zones east. This is the scariest game for BYU. UCF at its best just pounds the rock, pounds the rock, pounds the rock, pounds the rock. So, yeah, this is the danger game for BYU.
So, and UCF finally settled on a quarterback this week. He ran for 100-plus last week. They should have beat Iowa State. So this weekend, if you're a BYU fan, you'd be a little nervous here. But for Utah, you would have to win everything moving forward. We know, basically Saturday was an elimination game. More or less, you were eliminated.
Correct.
Are you willing to get weird, though, and talk about, they needed 10 tiebreakers to win the Pac-12 a few years back?
Correct.
Could we potentially have that on the table?
No.
All right. Okay. I don't think you're wrong. I'm just wondering.
I say no. November 9th is now your Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And
man.
Nobody wants to hear that, and nobody likes to confront that reality.
Yeah.
November 9th is now your season at the University of Utah.
Mm-hmm.
Because the bowl race, and you started the year with the expectation that you would be in the college football playoff. We were all making at least tentative plans for post-New Year's football for the Utes. And now, I remember I was told by the PFL, hey, we're going to do an event in January. And I was like, my immediate reaction was just I might not be able to do that one because if Utah's in the playoff, I'm not telling my bosses at Broadway. I'm not telling them I'm not covering that week.
Right.
I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
And they're just oh, well, we'll have to figure that out. And now it's not now it's laughable as a possibility. So, no, I am okay with it because I still love a college football season that boils down to can you beat your rival or not.
Mm-hmm.
I still love that about college football.
Yeah.
The expectations have changed for these Utah fans in a way that not everyone loves that.
You just said something that is so bizarre to me when you said, well, the bowl game will be, cast as a throwaway game if they qualify for it.
Uh-huh.
Come on, man. Can you imagine having this conversation at the start of the season? Will Utah qualify for a bowl game? That's insane.
Correct, but you've seen the rest of the schedule.
Yes, I have. And I've seen how they've looked so far. It has not been good enough.
And that's, again, it's an alarming situation for Utah fans, players, coaches, boosters to be in.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the reality of the situation. You said it best yesterday. It is bizarro Utah. You have flipped into the upside down.
Mm-hmm.
BYU is what you were supposed to be, and you are what BYU was supposed to be. And that is very uncomfortable.
Yeah. And you're not wrong about November 9th. Just like I said, if you're old enough to remember Utah football back in the day, it was, can we get to 6 and maybe beat BYU? That's what you cheered for back in the day. And it's kind of weird that we're back there 25, 30 years later.
Throwback season.
Yeah, indeed.
Utah Hockey Club game night. We got a fun show lined up for you tomorrow. Julie Stewart-Binks, our NHL insider, is going to stop by on the coaches show tonight. Zemiah Vaughn and Dallin Bentley, it looks like. We'll have Scott Mitchell, my guy Zachariah on the show tomorrow. What's coming up on the drive?
We have Scott Mitchell today, Stevenson Sylvester after that. So a lot of Utes right out of the gates. Amy Donaldson's going to roll by. She just released her new podcast on Real Salt Lake. We also have Nate Orchard live in studio. So advanced windows, but I'm going to hold Nate's feet to the fire now. We got to talk a little Utah football. And then you will be enlightened, illuminated, and entertained. You'll be none of those. Dave Fox live in studio. 2 Pelotons, 2 Emmys.
Stay tuned for the drive with Spence Checketts. Thanks for listening to the Sean O'Connell Show on your home of the Utes, ESPN 700.